G'day, folks. Welcome back for the once yearly podcast, Exiled. Joining me, as usual, is Exile number 500. I chose that number specifically for you in honor of this month's is.
Thank you so much. Hi, I'm good. How are you, good sir?
Good, man. You excited for the new league? You must be, because you have some big plans, right?
I'm very excited. I'm going to try to retake the most hours streamed in 30 days, so I will be streaming 500 hours in December. So chances are I'll always be there.
So ridiculous. And I think it's worth pointing out, I was thinking about this last night actually, that it's already the 7th here. So have you been streaming a lot already just to like pad your numbers a bit, or are you going hard from here?
It's not in like a calendar month, it's in like 30 days.
30
so you
days.
could start in the middle of a month, because if it was in one specific month, everybody would always choose a month with 31 days and nobody would ever do it in February.
Oh, so, the records.
It makes more sense to it makes more sense to just do any 30 days.
The meta, wow. And when you say everyone, you mean just you and Giant Waffle, because I don't think anyone else is silly enough to attempt such a thing.
Yeah, that's true.
Have you chatted to him since you guys have been doing this back and forth?
Yeah. We've talked a bit. I mean, my spreadsheet has like some waffle memes on them, stuff like that.
You have a spreadsheet for this too?
Yeah. Well, he actually started that. He had a great idea, and I was like, oh, yoink.
Yoink, stealing the strategy. It's just like its own Pee-wee racing meta.
Yeah.
Distilled in another format. That's beautiful.
But that's why I got a standing desk as well, because it'll be healthier to stand down again.
Nice. Usually I'm like pretty meh on the idea of a standing desk for streaming. I'm like, I hate it personally, but for doing 17-hour days every day for a month, I think that's probably a good idea. Do you just
it'll be good.
Take lots of breaks, please. Just look after yourself, bud.
You can take a break every hour for 90 seconds or something like that.
Ah, perfect. Very nice. My suggestion as well is to like go outside and like look at a distant side. That's good. You don't want to be looking at the same distance from, to your monitor all the time. It's bad for your eyes, eye strain. I know
outside?
That painfully. Outside, yes. Just look at. I guess you could just go to a window technically and just look at the distance. But it's good. That's good. Good advice for you guys. Also, look up Dr. Levi. I can't remember his actual name. I always call him Dr. Love Hands, but he has. Look up gamer hand exercises on YouTube. There's some good stuff for that as well. I suggest that for everyone for the league start. We have a big show planned today, guys. We have Dr. Love Hands. We have 3 loose sections. One will be new builds using the new skills. Why am I not playing this video? What an unprofessional podcast. Here we go. We've got background video. It's just sitting there on a still image. We have new builds with new skills. So we'll be covering 4 of those to cover the kind of like 4 categories roughly that the new skills encompass. We'll be having some old faithful classic builds that are well-proven league starters if you guys don't want to take the gamble on the new skills, because the new skills are always a gamble. And then we'll be talking some league strategy and advice, and that should be particularly interesting this league as well, because we've got 4 leagues rolled into 1 effectively. And then also, I don't know, it feels like 4.5 leagues, because we've got, we have the Scarabs, which kind of feel a little bit like League Stones to me.
Yeah, they're like League Stones combined with sack fragments.
Yeah, kind of like a pseudo League Stone sack fragment thing that allows you to trigger some of the league mechanics a little bit more often, potentially. So that should be pretty exciting. Ziz, I believe you're going to kick us off here with the new builds and skills, and probably, I don't know, I think it's probably one of the most hyped skills of the new one, Winter Orb. Let me go ahead and switch over to that.
So,
tell us about Winter Orb.
I don't know, I can't read apparently. I mean, I just saw the fine print here. But yeah, Winter Orb looks really exciting, and I was playing around with it like a little bit in Path of Building. Like for how I would imagine the skill tree would look. Obviously, we don't have the gems yet, which I was hoping would be out by now, so I could start playing with it in Path of Building to see what it would like. I think when I first saw the gem, I was like, it looks a little weak, but then I remembered that the projectiles overlap. So we sort of have a way of shotgunning again, from what we understand.
Yeah.
So I think this will now be the only thing that shotguns again. And usually this, in the past of Path of Exile, shotgunning has always been like sort of overpowered and kind of strong. And the reason, so I'm aiming for first level 100 in Hardcore Trade League, and I usually never do a new skill for this. I usually always do like something tried and tested that I know like, oh, I can win with this. The thing is that with this build, I can do, it's the same skill tree as Blade Vortex, like literally exactly the same point for point. So if I don't like this, I swap one gem and boom, we are a Blade Vortex build.
On that note, I just realized you haven't given me the build link to show off.
Oh, I can do that right now if that
Could you
helps.
link me the path of building kindly, Ziz? Because then I can link it to people as well. We'll link you guys. Amy will be linking in chat the builds as we go, and on YouTube, if you guys watching on YouTube, I'll link in the description below the builds and
So
any
this is
guides associated.
basically the out or like 3.4 Elementalist BV build, and then I'll be making. Should I link it on Skype? There. It's basically the same as last league, and you also have the options. The options of doing.
You posted it on
saw.
Skype, and it appeared over your face as an overlay.
I saw, yeah, that's nice. But yeah, it looks really good. And as I said, like it's point for point, like the old one. You do have some other options. I will be posting a new video about this because you can do like the new minion nodes are really strong for these builds as well. Especially if you play softcore and you don't want to like go extra tanky with like acrobatics or face acrobatics. So yeah, it looks really strong. I wish we had like the path of building for the gem. I mean, obviously we've seen the actual gem and the level 20 version, but they aren't like available for path of building yet. Something that's really nice about Winter Orb is that it's an AoE and a projectile. So that means they're using both like parts of the Dying Sun, which I really, really like. That might be a low level tree. If you look in the bottom left, you can click on like points. I think it's on 90 right now. If you put it on like 100 and something.
Nice. There you go.
Yeah. So the way I do my guides is I like show point for point where like, especially for new players, like how they should allocate their points so they don't suddenly just see a full skill tree and have no idea what direction to go. But yeah, no, it looks really solid. And as I said, you have multiple options for where to put them. And it just looks like a really fun skill to play. Like the reason I really liked it is because I used to play Frozen Orb back in Diablo 2. And it looks very similar. And then again, like on my build guides, I also try to like do different. I don't think it's in this video, but in all the new ones, there'll be like different item sets for early game and end game, and the notes will show exactly where to buy gems, which is actually something that Lyric suggested I do, and I was like, you know what, that's actually a good suggestion. I'm gonna take it. So
that is a very good suggestion. I like
very,
that.
very good for like new players and easier to follow.
So I was looking at Winter Orb, and it's getting compared a lot to Blade Vortex, but I feel like it's going to be ultimately a bit of a different feeling of playstyle. It looks kind of similar, like the idea is you like whirl it up and then you run, and you can kind of do that to an extent, and I see you've got like the duration cluster here. We'll certainly let you do that more, but it's a lot shorter duration, and it's also a channeled skill, so it seems like there's going to be a bit more when you're at a pack or a difficult fight, kind of like standing back and channeling it and picking your positions like that, whereas at Blade Vortex you kind of whirl it up and then run in.
I think it'll be nearly exactly the same playstyle as Blade Vortex, especially with I think there's a few wrong things on this path of building, but like there'll be a new one coming as soon as we have the like new gem, so it's not too important on this one. Like I'd rather make like a fully up to date one so everyone can see exactly what gems to use with like GMP and stuff, obviously. But yeah, I think it'll be very much the same, and I also think that Winter Orb is going to use a 4 or 5 linked Val Blade Vortex to do. I kind of worried about the single target of Winter Orb when you're self-casting and you don't have totems or something, whereas say something like 4, 6, or 7 totem Hierophant or Elementalist with totems like might be a really good boss killer. I do think Elementalist will struggle a little bit on that, and again, Val BV will help with that a lot as well.
Yeah, that's true. Blade Vortex does have that, and there are some like Val cold skills you could use, but it sounds like Val Blade Vortex would probably just be kind of stronger in the end anyway. I notice you're using the classic impulses for this as well. Just always a good choice for everything, but also Elementalist.
Yeah, and like they nerfed Impulsa in like, well, a way that I agree with, but it's still kind of overpowered, I think, because I think the main reason Impulse is overpowered is because it does get scaled by elemental damage and elemental overload.
Yeah, just insane clear speed. If you're not familiar with the chest, for some reason, it basically just causes things to explode, dealing lightning damage in an area based on their life, which can be scaled up, and it's pretty nutty. I feel like they could have just removed the life from it, and people still would have used it.
Oh yeah, and Impulse also has a hidden modifier. It multiplies the amount of fun you're having by around 50%.
That's also true. I see you got another fun multiplier here, Bright Beak, just for the faster move speed.
Yeah, and it's really good still. A lot of people stopped using it a bit after Shield Charge got nerfed, but the Bright Beak attack speed will still affect stage 1 and 3 of a Shield Charge. Just not like there's a middle stage that doesn't get affected by it. So
Yeah.
technically it got nerfed by 33%.
But says that's a stat stick. I heard those were dead. Doesn't
Kill me.
count for spellcasting. Hiram Sorrow is a classic choice for Blade Vortex, but is it just used here for the added cold damage to spells and attacks?
No, so the item set here isn't like up to date for Winter Orb, but I'm sort of waiting on that until the gem is in, and then I'll make like a fully up to date Winter Orb one. So it'll be so much easier. Then we can put in things like GMP, see how it affects it, see how it affects the actual tooltip in Path of Building as well if it calculates properly.
Yeah.
So
I
actually
that's
have,
probably
like-
the only thing, right? That's
Yeah.
not accurate in here for Winter Orb, is Hiram Sorrow.
yeah, and I think I could see myself maybe using GMP and LMP if it makes it overlap really well.
There seems to be, from the video footage, which I can scroll back to briefly, there seems to be like a bit of spread going on, and I think the more projectiles you add, the more spread you're going to get. Since it does kind of go in a line, there's a little bit of a grouping effect to it. So I think there'll be like a limited number of overlaps, except for on very large targets, I imagine.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I can see that actually being really good on like our Kali or Brain King type bosses that are really large where you're hitting with like everything. Can't remember. I think it's Firestorm, for example, that just massacres our Kali.
Yeah,
But like you can see in the video there that the rare is dying so slowly.
Yeah, small targets like tough rares could end up being a little bit dodgy if you're using like a lot of projectile scaling that lowers your actual hit damage.
Yeah. I wonder how volley will affect it.
I imagine it'll just add the extra projectiles and not change the behavior of it based on the way it interacts with other skills that have kind of overriding features.
Yeah.
Though,
Hopefully.
yeah, there is like weird stuff going on with like Scarabs and that, so possibly remains to be a bit seen.
Don't know what the enchants are, right? Imagine if it's additional projectiles on the enchant, then we have another like Molten Strike overpowered enchant again. Be funny.
Do we know what? Yeah, I'm sure they would make that mistake again. We'll say.
Sure.
I just had the thought, how will Sire of Shards work with this? I wonder. Will that make it go in all directions? Because that could be pretty fun looking.
Yeah, especially wow. Yeah.
Okay.
I think it looks really fun.
Yeah, no, I think it's going to be a popular choice for a lot of people deciding to play it. And this is going to be your league starter, isn't it?
Yeah.
Since you've got that easy fallback, as you mentioned, into...
yeah, like
just swapping
usually
straight
I would
Blade
never ever risk that, but it's like 0 risk. And I'm probably going to be using BB anyway, so it'll be leveling as well. The only thing you would have to change is like support gems. There's like nothing.
I think the danger in that is that maybe this isn't such a big deal for you because you just want to play what's efficient, but... if I have something that's an easy fallback and is very good, then you're always going to be comparing the skill you're playing to that, not as its own like build. So you're just like, you'll be playing this skill and then you'll whack Blade Vortex on with no other changes and you're like, oh no, it's just so much better.
Yeah, I mean, and that is fairly likely to happen as well. However, PoE does have sort of a history of making new skills kind of overpowered in the start and then nerfing them later just to like make people play them a bit.
Yeah, well, a mixed
happen
history.
well.
Sometimes it can go either way, can't it?
I mean, yeah, it can go either way. So it's a nice gamble. The only problem with Winter compared to PV is obviously when I'm pushing for 100, I'd rather have more people in the team just for increased drops of things like Sextants and you make more efficient use of the Sextants. And Winter Orb doesn't really get affected by, for example, a Scion Aura box. The only thing I can really do is Anger. Whereas if I was playing Blade Vortex, I could have one Curse player, and I could also have a support player running, for example, Generosity Hatred. so I don't get that option.
Nice, nice. Any final thoughts on this build before we move on to the next one?
Other than I think that it's gonna drive a lot of people insane with the it looks really fun as a starter.
Hold on, let me give people a sample of the sound here. Yeah. Ziz won't be able to hear this, but he knows. He knows.
Oh, I know.
So like, it's like they took that cold shatter sound effect that we love, that's so satisfying, but it's maybe pushed a little bit too far. It does sound a bit like a broken washing machine with some coins in it or something.
Yeah, that's actually what it sounds like.
So that might turn your game sounds down a little bit maybe. It has happened before that they had like an early preview for a skill that sound was just way too grating, and they did end up fixing it. So hopefully that's the case here.
Some of the pets as well.
Yeah, the Stygian Revenants, I recall, but those were pretty obnoxious for a long time.
Oh, they were so annoying.
Their sounds
I hated trading
insane.
with people just because of that.
Yeah, if they stayed in your hideout after trading.
The
so
ultimate
painful.
BM.
Actual nightmare fuel as well. You'd like fall asleep hearing the sounds of Stygian Revenants. Oh dear God, you're giving me flashbacks.
I know, dude.
All right, so the next build then I'll be taking the helm on is Armageddon brand, one of the two new brands. This will cover like the brand side of things, this build in general, because you'll probably level with Storm brand anyway. But of the two new, I think Armageddon brand looks a lot better. Storm brand kind of just looks like an arc with a little bit of an AoE thrown in, but maybe not to the power of arc exactly. But Armageddon brand looks dope. The visuals on it are great, but essentially what brands are kind of an interesting new skill category entirely. They're actually most like something like Orb of Storms, but with a bit of a mind of their own. In fact, I was talking to Rory about the mechanics earlier, and that's specifically how he described it to me. Is like Orb of Storms with mind of its own. So that means they count as your hit for things like Leech, also unfortunately Reflect, but also things that trigger on you hitting enemies. But they, kind of like exist independently, and you can cast multiple of them. And the way they work is you cast them on the ground, and then they have an attachment range, and if a mob goes into the attachment range, or is in the attachment range, they'll attach to the monster and then repeatedly trigger their associated skills, in this case slamming them with a meteor. And then once that monster dies, they'll go back down to the ground, and then if another monster's in the area, they'll reattach. So they can effectively bounce around a pack as a result. And I don't know, it should be a pretty fun playstyle. In terms of the passive tree, they have a lot of association with totems. And most of the totem nodes now also have brand association. I feel like whenever I'm talking about brands, I feel like I'm just talking about a product or something here. But yes, they have brand association, various things. So like stuff that has totem cast speed will have like brand activation, which is effectively cast speed for their triggered skill, and brand damage in addition to that. So there is some synergy for brand skills in general if you want to make your own, with potentially working in some totems for additional support. The Armageddon brand build that I've chosen to roll with here is can either be done as a Hierophant or an Elementalist. And it'll be using Armageddon brand and Scorching Ray totems, which has the dual effect of providing some extra fire damage that will be scaled, and stripping enemy fire resistances, which is classic for any fire skill to be using Scorching Ray. Of the two, so you've got the Hierophant and Elementalist tree, both are basically identical. The only difference being really the Ascendancy. And of the two, probably the Elementalist is going to be stronger, because let's face it, that's Elementalist, right? But Hierophant offers a tankier build overall. You get Mind Over Matter and get immunity to ailments. You'll get some like Arcane Blessing, for example, gains Arcane Surge when you or your totems hit an enemy. Brands will trigger that. I did confirm that with Rory.
Nice.
And then you've got the actual brand specific node here, which will give you kind of a bit more, just maybe a bit more play smoothness with it, but I still don't think it'll compete with quite what Elementalist does. So it gives you like an extra brand and some extra brand attachment range, and brand recall, the support skill, which kind of like summons all your brands to you and triggers them once. It reduces the cooldown recovery speed of that, so you can spam it a bit more. So that might end up being kind of nice. Overall, I think probably the Elementalist is going to be a more popular choice overall because it, I mean, it just gives crap loads of damage and clear speed. And that's what Elementalist does. You get the fire proliferation built in, as well as some extra shock for extra damage. Both of them actually give you leech, which is worth noting, I think, since these guys are kind of independent of you. You just throw them down, and then as you're running around, they'll leech to you, which I feel like is going to be pretty nice. A bit of food prep going on in the background for the league, Ziz?
Yeah.
Nice. And you get some like extra AoE scaling and stuff like that on the tree. So otherwise pretty standard like stuff fits pretty nicely here. You got elemental overload. Looking at like crit versus non-crit, there's some crit support there through the totem nodes that also give crit, like Shaman's Dominion also gives crit for brands as well. So it's possible to do some sort of like crit build with them possibly, but felt really point heavy and not really necessary in the end. And, you know, Elemental Overload, Mind Over Matter, works both well with Elementalist and Hierophant. You can use, like, Clarity and a little bit of, like, Aura stuff if you want, or you can just go, like, Clear Mind and leave all your mana unreserved and have a nice, juicy, combined life pool there. But we basically scoot around and get, like, the brand nodes from both sides of the tree as well, the totem nodes. And you don't really need to pick up Ancestral Bond. Runebinder gives you -1 number of totems, but the new support gem, multiple totems support, allows you to summon multiple totems at once, so that'll make that really fast and also increases your totem limit. And you can get stuff like the minion damage nodes as well because they're super efficient. In terms of skills, you'll be able to kind of like just level with whatever spell at the start and then transition into Stormbrand, maybe with like some arc support or something. And then you get that from a really low level. I'm thinking like level 8 or something. And then Armageddon Brand comes from Gravicious, so that's a bit later on, but Stormbrand will definitely work just fine until then.
You need to teach me your breathing technique. This stuff is impressive.
Rap God. Do you have any thoughts on the brands or Armageddon Brand?
I think they're gonna, especially the lightning one, is going to take over a lot of racing, because it seems like with the recall and the way they seem to re-summon after they've killed something, right? I'm not even too familiar with them.
Yeah, so they like go back down to the ground. They have separate durations for how long they can be on the ground and how long they can be on an enemy. And
yeah, and then you have the recall thing, so it seems like you can just like keep running with them basically if you do it well.
Yeah, you can basically put them all out. They'll jump around and clear the pack, and then if you want a bunch of burst damage, you can use Brand Recall to call them to a rare. I think that's the intended purpose of the Brand Recall skill. I think I have the link for that here. Where is it? Brand Recall. I kind of almost don't get Brand Recall, but it's a support skill that increases your brand attachment range, refreshes the duration a bit, and summons your brands to you. So if you already have all your brands out and you run to the next pack, you can effectively just call them down and they'll trigger their skill and then like reattach themselves. So I guess it might like boost your clear speed a bit because you don't have to resummon all of your brands. You can just kind of instantly move them and then start when you get to the next pack resummon. So you kind of might just alternate between either summoning brands or recalling your brands, and it might also help boost your single target.
It's interesting that level 6 is max.
Yeah, it's all these other skills are like usually 1 to 3, these random utility skills like detonate mines or whatever. Just this one's just 6.
Yeah, 1 to sell, level 7 brand recall, 20 quality, 10x.
I wonder what level 7 corrupted 20 level 7 23 gives.
Yeah. Interesting. I wonder if we'll end up using like castle damage taken brand recall while racing.
Castle damage brand recall. That's not a bad idea. That might be an alternate way of just using it instead of using it yourself. Then you can just focus on casting them. If you have totem support, casting your totems a bit, and then just letting them happen.
You could do something similar to Scolds, where you shield charge and take damage, and then you're constantly recalling your brands as you're moving.
I feel like that might just like constantly detach them from enemies though, if it's triggering too often. I like the idea of custom damage taken because the idea is like you take a hit, something's threatening you, and then all of a sudden your brands appear at your feet effectively and just smash everything around you. So it's kind of like they're coming to your rescue. Maybe. Knights in fiery armor. It does have a cooldown, yeah.
I mean, with the damage taken thing though, I don't know. I wonder if we can get them to activate faster, like to go from above and down faster.
Yeah, the activation frequency is effectively cast speed for them. It's worth noting that both of them do scale with cast speed as well. So gear is usually the best place to get some of that. And
I think if you get like a
cast speed
lot
can
of
be really
cast
nice.
speed, then with the cast, I'm mistaken, it should work. With like similar to like the Vol Molten Shell builds we've done in the past.
Yeah, I think it's worth noting as well with Armageddon Brand specifically that it has pretty competitive ignite numbers. It's got like more ignite damage and chance to ignite, and the numbers are pretty competitive with like say Fireball Ignite. I still think whenever I think about something like an ignite build though, I always think why not just use the best damage igniting skill? Like why would you use anything else if because you just want the biggest single ignite? But like there are some like clear speed things and stuff like that.
Isn't Armageddon Brand one of the best ignite builds now? It looked like it.
It's going to be up there, I think. I think Fireball probably still a little bit stronger, and for like big single ignites, probably still, Flame Blast. But I for this build though specifically went for the idea of just using the ignites for Immolate just to amp up the damage because the damage numbers for actual hits I think are really good, and that takes more advantage of like any cast speed you happen to get and all the brand activation frequency. So the actual hit damage with ignite just as a supplementary thing seems pretty good as well. It's like just a combined aspect of them too. But yeah, there's definitely some potential to build around ignites here.
It looks really fun.
Yeah, I think of the new like builds, and especially like looking skill tree wise, this feels like the most solid. Like I look at this and think this is gonna work. There's no way that this is not gonna be decent. The other ones like Winter Orb, I think, ooh, we really have to play it to see like just how it feels mechanically. It's a bit more of a question mark. The Cold Dots, which will be the next build that I cover, will be like they seem like they could be good, but skill mechanics could be really rough, and I'm not as sure about it. This seems like the most surefire thing to me.
I mean, I agree and disagree. I think Armageddon Brand will end up being more of something for say bossing, whereas like the Lightning one I can see being more for like clearing.
You reckon? Because it's got that kind of like range where it.
Yeah, this like I feel like you're gonna have stragglers and stuff, whereas the Lightning one is not gonna leave any stragglers.
And that might be where Elementalist ends up pulling ahead, and that's why I'm kind of like leaning towards Elementalist for these two, so that Ignite proliferation can pick off the stragglers.
It looks fun to play either way. I think it's cool with like new things in the game. I do feel bad for the devs though. Like there's so much to balance, and like it's like this like big crazy puzzle now.
Dude, that's they knew they were getting themselves into that when they made Path of Exile. As complex as they did.
I know. Maybe like 400 IQ patches going on.
Yeah. Oh dear. I think that's any final thoughts on brands or Armageddon Brand or anything like that.
No, like as I said, like I'm really looking forward to it for racing. I think that'll be really fun.
Yeah, like early game stuff as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, it seems like it could be a nice part of a rotation of these kind of like set it and forget it skills that you can use in racing. We just throw it down and it does this work while you move on. Totally. Okay. On that note, yeah.
Yeah. So next up is Shattering Steel, and I started playing around a little bit. I'll send you this as well.
The build, yes, please.
Yeah. Oh, cannot share. Why? So it looks really, really solid. Maximum pastes per 24 hours reached. That's not great.
What, in Google Docs? Can you just put it straight in there?
No, in Path of Building. I've never seen that before.
You've made too many builds, Ziz. What are you doing, dude?
I'm trying to help new players.
You can just post the actual skill. Wait, I don't know. What do you? Just post the actual Path of Building link.
Oh, here. Okay.
Oh dear.
Okay, this is kind of blew me, I guess.
Oh dear God, yes. Look at that. Look at Ziz's webcam. Oh no, it's not even a link, so I can't like copy paste it. I gotta like select it all. Oh no.
Oh,
okay.
have fun.
That's brilliant.
So this is just like a lower level thing. I haven't like looked that much at like the end game yet, but when like playing around with it in Path of Building, so like this is like the first 88 points now, I think. And I feel like it's got a lot of like different variety of things you can do. You can play this as like champion. If you look at the gem tags, it's an AoE and a projectile, which again, this is like my favorite thing in Path of Exile. Anything that like is both an AoE and projectile is just so cool because of things like Dying Sun. and you get to use, for example, like the projectile nodes. You benefit from the AoE nodes, and something like I was sort of like, I'm kind of running out of useful nodes here, and it uses like either an axe or a sword, I think.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't want to take axe nodes. I don't want to take sword nodes. I don't really want to be one-handers either because it's kind of alternate. So you're going to need to have two good ones, which can be annoying. But I think two-handers are going to be a little bit more in this season. And something that really, really is strong for all these new builds, like with dual wielding stuff or, whatever, is spiritual aid. So if you guys don't know, the way spiritual aid works is it makes any minion damage also affect you. And this counts for like totems and stuff or traps as well. And there's like a lot of nice juicy minion nodes you can pick up them that will benefit you. And you get to take things like Fury Bolts. You do also have like the option of being in the Ranger start with things like Ballistic Mastery, get some Prowler speed up there. And I would most likely be playing this as a Scion Slayer. And then I'd say this is most likely going to be a clearing skill. I don't think it's going to be something we're really going to take into boss killing. So I would most likely do Deadeye. If I was going to do bosses, I'd probably be Pathfinder. But again, like I doubt this one's going to be a boss killer. So with Deadeye, you get like the 2 free Pierce and you get an additional projectile. And then, yeah, you end up with so many projectiles. It looks like a really fun build to play or a really fun skill to play. And possibly give some like new uses for things like, Starforge, Voidforge, Disfavor. And you might be able to pick up some like cheap one-handers if people are like really put off by trying to get 2 good ones. But it looks like...
Go ahead.
It looks like a really fun like map clearing build.
Yeah, I'm least convinced of all the skills by the new melee skills, but they do have that Impale mechanic going on, which is a new debuff. What do you think of Impale overall?
It's... So Impale, from what I understand, it like stores Impales and then will use that Impale damage the next time you attack.
Yep.
I'm usually not a fan of anything that's on the second attack when there are so many things that just straight up one-shot anyway. Same reason I don't really like dot builds. I've generally been a fan of dot builds in the past only for things like bosses, because you're not going to one-shot a boss anyway now that we don't have proper Valoright's Fire anymore. So sure, for things like that, but this doesn't really seem like the sort of build that is going to be killing bosses. And then I'm not a big fan of things like Impale, because if I'm attacking a pack twice in Path of Exile at the moment when we have so much damage, I'm generally doing something wrong, because so many things can just one-shot the entire screen right now, even on fairly mediocre gear. So not a big fan initially of Impale. Maybe it'll turn out pretty good for bosses. But, I mean, it still looks like a fun build. It's like very, very similar to like sort of like EK, I guess.
Yeah, it does look a bit like it. So Shattering still has 40% chance to Impale. The way Impale works is that it stores 10% of the damage dealt, and then it'll deal that again on the next 5 hits that you do, so they can stack up. And Champion has one node that extends up to 7 hits. Like, I agree with you for Shattering Steel, especially specifically because Impale's not really going to have a big difference on your pack clear, so having Impale on that is kind of a moot point. But I mean, there is like the Dread. One of the banners does scale off of having Impales. So whenever you get an Impale, it gives you a stage, and then when you pop that down, it'll give you a bunch of buffs based on how many stages you have. So it effectively could be something you use to just build up towards a boss kill. And then Impale then makes the big difference on the boss kills. So you mentioned in your build notes for this one that it'll be a good clear build, but you don't really see it particularly strong as a boss killer. I think like Lancing Skill is just a straight swap that you can swap in, and looks like it could be a really good boss killer.
It definitely does. The thing about Lancing Steel I don't like is that it doesn't get affected by things like Dying Sun. So, well, I mean, it does have the projectiles, but there's no AoE bit to it. It definitely seems like they want Lancing Steel to be a single target and the other one to be a map clearer.
Yeah, I'm like, the numbers on Shattering Steel seem kind of low, but I think that's just because like it is just such a clear based skill. But I see Lancing Steel with Impale scaling, especially ending up being like potentially one of the new boss killing skills for melee. Nothing's probably going to compete with Val Double Strike, but it seems like it has some potential there. So maybe build might not be so bad for a single target.
Something I can see myself using would be that like the cold axe thing, the dirge thing. Like it's got so much damage, and you can scale it very differently then without needing like any specific weapon type damage. You can use the fire damage, avatar fire, and like fully convert it, which would be really cool.
Interesting. We'll try and get you guys the full build for that. It looks like the pace didn't work very well, so I'll try and get you guys the full build for that in the YouTube video. So if you want that, if you guys are watching live, catch it then. But for you guys watching on YouTube, hopefully we'll have it sorted by the time it gets up on YouTube.
Hopefully with like, I'm guessing the gem updates should come in not too long, and then we'll be able to have like fully up-to-date guides, including the gems, so new players don't have to be confused by placeholders.
Yeah, and that's worth noting for the for all these builds of new skills. They're using placeholder skills. So for like the Armageddon brand, I have just like Fireball in there just as a placeholder. But you guys will have to update that, or I'll try and get it updated when that information becomes available. And also with any new builds and new skills, these are all experimental. You should go into any of these builds expecting that you'll make a bit of changes as you go, as you get a feel for things and see what works and what doesn't, because it's all experimental ultimately. Any final thoughts on the like melee in quotation marks side of things?
I'm really curious to see how things go with like one-handers and two-handers now with like statistics being changed so much. Something I could see like one-handers ending up being cheap because so many people are scared of wanting to go one-handers. So
that'll happen due to the fear of it, I think. Though I think it's worth mentioning that shields are getting pretty good, man. They've been getting better and better, and from what I've seen of the new Veiled mods, like they're only going to be getting better for that as well. Like the new crafting, don't underestimate the new crafting with Veiled mods. Like you get some of those insane Veiled mods, and you can just whack those on any item you want. So you get a nice shield, you can whack a nice Veiled mod on there, just as a mastercraft. And
not to forget, want to sell like Hosadate 22x or something.
Yes, like Hosadate as always will be very popular and expensive. But even just like other shields, even just rare shields, some of that stuff's getting pretty good these days. And the like support for one hand plus shield on the tree is almost as good as dual wield, is. So it's it's not stat stick levels, but there's potential.
Nothing's ever going to be stat stick levels.
No, I think that's the idea, isn't it?
Yeah. It'll be fun. Yeah, I mean, the thing is, for temp leagues, it's still going to be strong. There's one benefit to dual wielding still, because the stat still works, right? I mean, obviously it's been like nerfed in power by half, and the fact that you need to attack with both weapons. But you can, for example, have 40% as a on the temp leagues. It's very hard to have like a triple hybrid physical weapon. So having, for example, something like a tyrannical and a flaring roll, and then a 40% is extra, that's still really strong. And if you have two of those, that's still 80% more damage as elemental. So that's that, or sorry, 40%.
Yeah, if you're talking like most optimized possible, you want, one of the best possible weapon that's completely dedicated to localized damage stats. So your attack speed, your crit multi, your crit chance, your fizz. But we don't really usually play under the most optimized circumstances, especially not in challenge leagues, as is saying. So using one really good weapon and then, or even just like two weapons that are pretty good with the Shaper Elder mods on them is potentially quite viable. Just make sure you can attack with them with your skill. All right. No final thoughts on Melee beyond that?
No, that's Shattering Steel for me.
All right. What have we got next? We've got the video I've chosen for this is Arctic Breath, but this covers a bit more than just Arctic Breath, and that is cold dot skills. I effectively call this new archetype. We've had a few like cold dots for a while now, but they've gotten a whole host of new support. Arctic Breath is what I would call like a complete skill redesign. It is not in any way the same skill. It is now a ground-targeted projectile that explodes when it hits the ground. If it pierces through an enemy, it won't trigger. It has to hit the ground and do an explosion. Then when it does an explosion, it puts down a chilled ground that creeps towards nearby enemies and deals cold damage over time. And we also have Vortex getting changed. Vortex is now an instant cast skill with a cooldown. The cooldown gets pretty short as it levels, you can potentially adjust that with other cooldown stuff. It also functions differently with Frostbolt now. If you trigger Vortex on Frostbolt, it'll trigger multiple times from this one single cast, so you can effectively kind of bypass the cooldown that way and get multiple triggers that could overlap. And we also have Cold Snap as well. I think Cold Snap didn't change too much. It might have got
I think it just got the damage buff.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah, so in terms of the Cold Dot stuff support-wise, we have a new stat entirely called Cold Damage Over Time Multiplier, and it's one of the few multipliers that's available just on the tree and on gear. So you can get it as Veiled mods, and you can get it as, I think they said Shaper Elder mods as well, possibly. So that they might be available in some like slots that you can't normally get damage on, or that you wouldn't expect it. Maybe they're just on weapons. I'm not sure. And then the actual tree has a whole bunch of them sprinkled around as well. Typically just on the cold nodes, but also on some of like the damage over time nodes. And the damage numbers on Vortex and Cold Snap seem really high for Cold Dot, and with all the scaling present. Seems like there's some potential there. This is going to be my league starter, is playing a Cold Dot Occultist. So let me bring up the tree for that here.
That'll be interesting to watch.
Yeah. But at the same time as saying that, like, I think there's some strong potential here. It's also one of the least certain builds I've played.
Yeah. Definitely scary.
Yeah, it's a scary choice. Like, it could just be...
CI.
Yeah, dude. Absolutely. There's a few things that concern me. So the good things are, I think, Vortex is an instant cast, means you can cast it while running, which means a lot of the time you're probably just going to be running around casting that as you run through packs and just exploding them without needing to stop. And I think that's going to be really fun to play.
Especially for racing.
Yeah, totally. And Var Cold Snap, if you've not used the reworked Var Cold Snap, is really good as well. And that is also a cold damage over time. And that's also a skill you can just run around murdering things with. So you just run around with Var Cold Snap up and Vortex up, just murdering things without stopping. So it's potentially going to be really fast. And the damage on those are also really, really good. The concerns I have are that... mechanically, Arctic Breath is a really slow skill. It's got very slow cast speed, and the damage over time on it is not super high compared to the other skills. So it almost seems like it wants to be a hybrid hit damage / cold damage over time. So the tree I've tried to design has that in mind a bit. It's mostly focused on the cold damage over time, but a lot of the cold damage over time nodes also give like, a bunch of cold damage that works for the actual hits as well. And I don't know, there's this weird situation where it's like, do you go Vortex and Var Cold Snap for running around, and then Cold Snap regular cast as like your fill-in skill? Because you need a fill-in skill, and this is where the awkwardness and the uncertainty arises, I think. Do you have like a fill-in skill as Cold Snap, or do you have a fill-in skill as Arctic Breath? And is that going to be enough? What are you going to do on bosses once you've triggered your Frost Bomb and your Vortex and cast your Cold Snap and you're on cooldown? What are you going to do then? Or are you going to just spam your Arctic Breath? Or are you just going to move around? Is the damage going to be enough for bossing with kind of like that awkwardness of potential cooldowns? I don't know. There's some potential skill mechanic side awkwardness there that I'm a little concerned about.
Yeah, I mean, I think the entire like cold damage over time multiplier thing was like, I was not expecting that. I think it's really weird, because it sort of feels, it's a bit confusing with things like Perfect Agony existing. When I first read about it, I thought it was basically another thing to make Perfect Agony stronger, but this feels more to me like they're moving a little bit away from Perfect Agony. I also haven't seen Perfect Agony in like a useful build. So I don't know, it's a bit weird. It's a like definitely a risky move in my opinion. And I wanted to ask, are you playing hardcore or softcore this league?
I still haven't decided yet. I don't know. Don't know. I haven't decided on that one yet. I think this will be fine for either though. Like I've just thrown in some very conservative rare gear. With like the slider in the middle, and it's got like 10k ES as an occultist. I'm sure this can be fine for hardcore or softcore, but yeah, no, I haven't actually decided yet which one I'm going to play. I can't remember what I'm up to. I usually alternate just 50-50 between the two, just go back and forth.
Yeah.
So I haven't decided yet. I'll have to think about that one. I've got not much time to think about it though. Leagues tomorrow.
What time is that for you that it starts?
5 a.m., but you want to be kind of up and ready to go before then. Well, it's what, like late for you or something?
7 p.m. But it's earlier than normal. Usually it's like 9 or 10 p.m. That's annoying as hell. After like times I wake up like 2 hours before.
Yeah, I guess that's annoying to change your sleep schedule. It's a bigger change than it is for me.
Yeah, that's like nice and early. I would love that.
Okay, let's agree to disagree on that one. I did forget to mention that Occultist has the new support ascendancy-wise for the new archetype here. Void Beacon now has minus cold resistance to nearby enemies, and Frigid Wake is a node designed around this that gives cold damage over time multiplier, gives some cute little freeze stuff, and chilled enemies deal reduced damage with hits, so like a nice mitigating thing. Everything's going to be chilled. And I can't believe it, but Frigid Wake also gives cannot be frozen and cannot be chilled, which in addition to Vile Bastion giving cannot be stunned, it's, as you see, I sorted.
Yeah, that's nice.
Do you remember the days when we had to travel across the tree for Unwavering Stance and get like a dedicated entire slot to like getting freeze immunity and all that sort of stuff?
I know. So it opens up last slots as well, which is really nice.
Yeah, like I was planning out, I'm just like, you could just use a complete set of rare gear. I actually only have one unique in here plotted as my league starter, and guess what it is? It's Malachi's Artifice, my unique. It got buffed or unnerfed.
So happy about that, and that's what I've been saying for a long time as well, but I was saying it might be slightly overpowered. Like, this is going to be such a good ring now. 50% more damage early on in a ring slot? That's insane. What's the level requirement on your ring?
5, dude.
That's bonkers. It's actually insane. You stop Orb of Storms on this baby, it's so much damage, and it gives resist.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited for it for a lot of builds, but it makes sense for this. So what Malachi's Artifice does is it gives you elemental equilibrium localized to a specific gem, which is super important because the downside of elemental equilibrium is that you can't use it if you're hitting a lot. And elemental equilibrium strips enemies' resistances based on what you hit them with. So if you hit them with fire, they'll have less lightning and cold resist. So for this, you can just, like Ziz said, put a Orb of Storms in Malachi's Artifice and use that to lower their cold resistance. Or you could even just put like a lightning golem in there and it happens automatically. So that can work pretty nicely as well. I love
it. It's so nice.
It's
what I've been hoping would change.
It was already starting to see some use, but now that it's been unnerfed, I'm keen to actually use it myself, which is nice. Like, I'll finally use my own unique. I haven't used it yet.
Yeah.
So I
think it'll be used a ton on softcore and on hardcore even. It'll be hard to replace, but I think I can see people replacing it on hardcore just for like an opal ring with life.
Yeah, I think eventually you can get like crafted rings that will exceed it, but as like league starter item, and in some builds it might still be kind of like something you could really stick with as well. So I
wonder if they're going to change the drop rate, because it's not exceedingly common.
No, it was way rarer than I thought it would be when I was making it. I thought this would be a pretty common leveling unique people can use, but they made it like about as rare or rarer than Tabula Rasa, which is unfortunate given that it wasn't seeing much use. I don't know, maybe they changed that though. They apparently changed a bunch of drop rates this league for uniques.
A normal unset ring, can you already find them at level 5? Because I don't feel like I find many.
No, that was actually kind of like one of the weird things when we're designing it. We had to design it specifically so that it could drop even though the base couldn't.
Right. Interesting.
That's weird. I wanted to mention about ES this league is got a little bit of love as well.
Oh, yeah.
There's a flat energy shield on the tree now. Look at this, 15, 15, and 30 on Essence Surge especially. I think there's a little bit more in a few other places, but that's like CI is just getting, well, energy shield just in general is getting stronger and stronger again. There was a while there where it wasn't, seeing much use, but it's picking up, and I mean, stuff like that, flat energy shield on the tree just makes it much easier to gear, and the difference between like not having much gear and having some decent gear is less. Like, it's less important. It's always the prevailing thought that CI was super gear dependent, but that's less and less the case for sure.
Yeah, and it's also a huge buff to Occultist because if you don't know, Occultist has this thing, or does it still have the recharge rating? That it like keeps
It
recharging?
Yeah, the recharge. Yeah, occultist has the recharge thing still. Yeah, in addition to the
Yeah.
250 flat ES.
Which node is the recharge thing though? It's
Wicked,
Wicked
wicked.
Word. That it
Yeah,
like still recharges if you're taking damage. So like for occultism particularly, like the fact that so many nodes now have increased recharge rate, that is huge.
well,
And I can see
what happened there was it got Essence Surge's recharge rate got taken. A lot of it got taken away and spread around on other nodes. And I think that was actually to support the new changes to Energy Shield and Eldritch Battery. But it's still like they're still on nodes you pick up, so it's not a big deal. Like Foresight has Energy Shield recharge rate for now, for example.
Yeah, it's really cool. I'm happy. I'm probably I was gonna play CI builds this league, but I didn't really get the chance to. And I saved so much gear aside from it as well. I had like really nice like item level 86 shaped or eldered Valregalia's hubris circlets gloves and all like rolled really nicely and then just never ended up using it.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I haven't played that many Energy Shield builds myself, so looking forward to play that. I'm just like quickly showing off the example gear because we've got like 9.5k ES. And like look at the gear I'm using here, like, you know, 74 Energy Shield boots, 35 flat, 78 gloves, and chest armor 84, 87%, that sort of thing. So really low rolls, but so with good gear it'll get even better. So I think I think like defensively it'll be really good, solid as a league starter. Just my big concerns with the cold dot stuff is just skill mechanics. It might end up being really awkward to play. But I mean, at the very least, I think the Vortex and Vol Cold Snap stuff for just map clearing at least will be really good. Most concerned about like boss killing and tougher maps, whether it'll end up painting for that. And that's really just a wait and see. And that's why I'm keen to test this actually, because I'm really curious to see how well it's going to play.
Yeah, and we also have like the new like I was wondering, I'm not 100% sure if I understand Bone Chill. Will this only work on dots or does it increase cold damage too? Because it seems like the wording means it also increases cold damage, but I'm not particularly smart.
Thank you for reminding me actually, because that's a pretty big one. Where is it here? So the Bone Chill support increases the cold damage over time specifically. Doesn't work for hit damage. So this is very specifically for cold damage over time. What it does is it gives increased chill duration, increased effective chill for the supported skill. Doesn't actually do that much for the supported skill though. This is more for use on another skill, which I'll get into in a second. But what it does is then makes enemies chilled by the supported skill take 29% increased cold damage. It's got that written a whole bunch of times, but that's just to make it modal for the different types of chill you can have, whether it's like a hit chill or a ground chill. So the things like the Vortex's chilling area and Arctic Breath's chilling area, but also Frostbomb's chilling area will all trigger this if this is linked to it, and be a big
it's a very
like
confusing support gem.
It's just because it's like written so much to cover the different types of chills.
Yeah, I mean, I can see as a new player though that I would look at this and I'd be like, nah.
Yeah, it might be a little confusing for new players possibly, but like allow me to distill it down for you guys. Enemies chilled by the supported skill take 29% increased cold damage over time, which is a very powerful effect. And I'm glad you reminded me because I wanted to specifically bring this up for the build. Is there's multiple ways you can use this. The first one is, firstly, I don't think you want to use this on your main skill because it doesn't do much for the actual main skill apart from increasing the chill effect, which is has some impacts on the with some of the other mechanics. So there's like in the build there's some chill scaling because that does actually do some stuff. But this is best used on supplementary skills like Frostbomb. So Frostbomb already strips enemy cold resistance. You put this on there. Frostbomb has a chilling aura. So let's say just Frostbomb with either Cascade or increased area of effect, increased duration, and Bone Chill. And you've got something that strips enemy resistances and makes them take increased cold damage over time. So that is going to help a lot with bosses or any tougher enemies like the frequent syndicate fights we're going to be having. And another creative choice is if you're not using Cold Snap as your main skill, so let's say you're using Arctic Breath and Vortex and Vile Cold Snap for running around, then you can chuck this on a cast when damage taken Cold Snap, which I think is really good. If you get hit by anything, Cold Snap auto targets them, chills them with a chilling ground. Bone Chill will then debuff them, and it'll generate frenzy charges because that's what Cold Snap does. Anything that dies in its area will generate frenzy charges. So that's
I
like
don't think Frostbomb chills, by the way.
Frostbomb does have a chilling area.
No, that's only when it explodes. The other effect, it just reduces resists.
I might be wrong. If so, I'm glad you corrected me. Let's just check. Chat, feel free to weigh in on this one. Let's have a look. I really thought it did. Does it not?
I'm pretty sure the pulse doesn't actually chill.
Each pulse applies a debuff to nearby enemies. Secondary duration slowers the cold resistance, reduces life and additional recharge rate, reduces yada yada. You know, you might be right. Frostbomb doesn't chill. Well, guys, my bad. Thank you very much.
It does when it explodes, though.
I'm glad you caught that here. Yeah, so that's definitely not as good then. The cold snap, like casting damage taken or something, is a better choice for that then. I mean, I don't know how long the chill lasts there exactly. You have a lot of chill scaling duration. It might be worth using on something like Vol Cold Snap then, but I don't know, you might want it up a little bit more. I like the idea of most of the custom damage taken Cold Snap with Bone Chill. But and you definitely could throw it on this just for the chill that it does give, but you might want a bit more uptime than since this doesn't have that like chilling pulse. I wonder if it's worth sacrificing one of your slots on one of your two skills for that debuff in addition to like a custom damage taken Cold Snap or something. Yeah, worth experimenting with.
Yeah. But yeah, no, it looks really cool with all the new stuff. It's pretty exciting that we have some like new stuff to actually that like look promising enough to start with.
I'm really surprised. I really thought the pulses for this chilled, but I think it doesn't.
It looks
definitely
like
doesn't
it should.
say it. Yeah, it definitely looks like it should, but from the wording, you definitely seem to be right about that. Okie dokie.
Do you want to move on to the tried and tested League starters?
I think that was it. Was it? Was that it for those ones? Perfect.
Yep.
Let's do that.
Okay.
So what have we got? I think you're up first, are you?
Yeah, number one on the menu. We something I did as well when like I did like Control F Impulsa, Control F Blade Vortex, stuff like that. Blade Vortex didn't really get nerfed. Blade Vortex is insane. And I'll be updating the build guide I had before that we've seen in like a lot of races. Like Steel used to message me and said like thanks for the builds, stuff like that when he won a race with it, and like it's really strong on Elementalist non-crit. Now I've played Elementalist Blade Vortex on both crit and non-crit, and I would say that crit is terrible, and I'll explain why. And like it's still a good build, don't get me wrong, but compared I'll explain. So all your heralds and Impulsa doesn't really get scaled by crit, because if you want to scale your heralds with crit, there's so few options to do that as an elementalist.
Yeah.
And your Impulsa as well, which is eventually your like main thing, and you can see it on the screen here. It's like popping off and clearing all the packs. That also does not get scaled by crit. However, your elemental overload and increased elemental damage, or for example, minion damage on the tree, if you have the minion node that makes it affect anything, this will all affect your Impulsa. And compared to my last guide, which I think we have a POB for as well, the main change in the new guide I'm making is that I'm putting in like a softcore option for if you don't want face acrobatics and acrobatics, you don't care that much about your tank, it will have the minion nodes. And there's some advantages here, especially early game, where you can go, for example, for a bone helmet, you can go for minion damage on your jewels, and you get a lot of minion damage on your tree as well. And there's a lot less pathing, so definitely more damage, but you do, it's very cool. I'm very excited about doing Blade Vortex again. So this is something I've used for like level 100 races, and ran to level 100 myself, I think. And also the most recent level 90 race, where it went really well. In the level 90 race, I did actually use the minion version that I haven't like published anywhere yet, but this does not have acrobatics and face acrobatics. With Incursion coming back, however, acrobatics and face acrobatics is bloody huge, because as soon as you enter, unless they've changed it, there's going to be like 643 chaos constructs just like so being able to dodge those is pretty big. Something that's so nice about it is like the Vol Blade Vortex is so strong, the entire build is so cheap, and even until you get Impulsa, it just clears so nicely with your heralds. It's not a particularly great boss killer, and the crit version definitely does do that. Like it does help a lot on bosses, but Elementalist Blade Vortex isn't something I would make as a boss killer. Normally I would do
No.
Arc Mines, Arc Traps,
Yeah.
Glacial Cascade, or Blade Vortex Chieftain. A friend of mine, Organic, has made like a Chieftain Blade Vortex build, and I think Mathil has dabbled in it as well. And it's really, really solid. But yeah, again, Elementalist, not something I would do as a primarily boss killer. Um, it's so cheap, and more importantly, like this is a build that you can play over and over again, and for a lot of people, it'll still be fun because it's got a really good feel to it. Anything with Impulsa is generally really fun, and what do you call it? The shatters of the build just sound and feel really nice, and it also handles all like the early game Act 1 to 10 bosses very good.
Nice. I think like the fact that it's not a boss killer is what makes it a league starter to me. Like builds that can't kill bosses are league starters. You use them
Yeah.
to just crazy farm maps, get lots of currency, and then fund your sick boss killing build. But yes,
Yeah.
classic choice,
And you
proven
end
by
up
many leagues of play.
Yeah, and you end up with things like you doing duration, efficacy, and things like that, and then your Blade Vortex lasts for such a long time with the duration nodes, and like it definitely handles things like map bosses very easily. But for example, like Uber Elder and stuff, not that fun. Still doable, but for
Yeah.
somebody that maybe isn't like super keyed in like mechanically, it can definitely give you a fairly hard time. Um, it's so fun. It's a great build.
Yeah, it's worth mentioning that like Blade Vortex stacked up plus Var Blade Vortex will kill most bosses just fine. So when we say not boss killers, we mean, not the top end boss killers and not insta phasing those, but still
Yeah.
can do them, just not insta phasing them. It's just biased more towards the clearing side of things.
Yeah, it's so nice.
So you reckon the phase acro and acro is going to be super important this league with Incursion? I think it's also going to be important for the
I mean, I do kind of
syndicate
hope
stuff.
that they've changed the incursions a little bit because that was a
Mm,
little crazy. It
it
also
was.
something the main thing I don't like about the incursions and the way they were was I didn't use a golem in the entire incursion league because on hardcore you were basically stupid if you had a golem at an incursion. For those of you who don't know what I'm talking about or didn't play Incursion, the rooms that you enter would have like a lot of ranged monsters around the entrance, and your golem doesn't have the same like protection that you do as a player. So what would happen to a lot of players? They would like be playing with a golem, as a lot of people do, to increase damage or attack speed. And as soon as they enter, all the ranged monsters would target your golem, and you maybe like a lot of players would maybe think like, oh, I'm being attacked, I need to move, and then everything is basically pre-firing on you, and you instantly die from like 30, 40 projectiles. And that happened to I think that happened to you in a clip as well.
Yes, I did suffer from that. Yeah, I was just remembering I did have one classic moment from that. I think we saw a lot of clips of people dying to that. It was classic.
Yeah, and because of things like that, I ended up not using golems for the entire league.
Yeah, worth turning them off for the incursion. So we'll see if that has been altered a little bit. But I mean, I still think you can't go wrong with macro phase macro in general.
Yeah.
It's not a bad addition. All right, I think that covers it for Blade Vortex. I mean, it's pretty well proven. I'd like to say for you guys watching live, Path of Building is currently busted. The passive trees are not working properly. So you're getting like 30-point builds. So don't stress. Ziz has a build guide you can check out. I'll link you guys the build guide right now. Hopefully I'll get that stuff fixed for the YouTube. Otherwise I'll link you guys to the build guide.
Yeah.
And you can check
And
that out.
we'll be updating a lot of this once the gems get updated for Path of Building too. So don't stress with that until the YouTube is out.
It's possible that my Path of Building needs updating. It might be that's killing them. I don't know.
I don't think so. I think it's just busted right now.
Yeah, I think like it's in the middle of being changed for the new expansion, so this is always a bit of an awkward time for these things, especially because Path of Building tries to get the support for the gems and that. But we'll figure it out. The guide is there at the very least, and if you guys don't get anything that works right now live, it'll be on YouTube. So let's move on to the next one then. I had my good friend Mr. Rise QT help me out with a suggestion here. For something. So he's appearing on the podcast in spiritual form. So let's get Mr. Ice QT up here on stream. There he is. in spirit. And I'm talking about, you know it, Arc Classic. Didn't get nerfed, to many people's surprise. Chris did say on a podcast he was on just the other day that it's worth keeping some things around that people know as tried and true for if they're not feeling like making a new build. That there's something the classic that they can go back to. And Arc can be played in many forms, and it's good in all of them. And Arc Totems, not the least of which is very good. RiseQT played Arc Totems multiple times, and recently in the Race to 90. He won a Demigods with it in the past, played it in solo self-found, so always, like, solo self-found's a good metric for as a league starter because you can do it with no existing gear. Classic, you get Arc, you put totems on it. Let me pull up the skill tree here. Hopefully it's working with my path of building, please.
I'd even argue that Arc got buffed this patch because you can have 2 totems down at the same time now.
Yes, the multi-totem support adds a little bit of extra love for totems. You can get your totems down much faster and potentially get more of them as well. So the Arc Totems is something that both allows you to play very safely if you want to, or just clear speed. Like, you whack your totems down, they shred everything, and you keep moving. But if you need to, like, hang back and, you know, hide behind your totems or move around while your totems are dealing the work, then they can work just fine as well. It's worth noting for you guys who want to see other variants of Arc, Ziz will be covering Arc Mines and Traps a little bit later as well, because all of them are kind of worth mentioning as league starters. For this tree, I've got some notes from Rides, but basically you'll want to be rushing to Mind Over Matter and Ancestral Bond early on, and then his other advice is to not go crit too early, which is classic. You don't really want to ever be leveling crit in Path of Exile. Very few circumstances where that works out well. So don't spread yourself too thin going crit early on. Just get things like Mind Over Matter, Ancestral Bond, then reach out and grab some of the totem damage and stuff like that. As you travel around getting life for leveling, you really don't need any specific gear, just whatever rares you can find, and you are pretty good to go. For the other, like, aura support, you can either just use the Clear Mind Jewel, or you can run something like Clarity. And the choice is yours kind of between those two things. Basically, it's a choice between some damage or tankiness. And he also suggests something I thought was a little interesting, which is Vol Cold Snap and Cold Snap to maintain frenzy charges uptime, which is a little slightly unexpected, but you can just run around with Vol Cold Snap and it'll generate frenzy charges for you. So I thought that was a pretty neat idea. And what are your thoughts on the totem playstyle of Arc? I think you're more of a fan of, like, the traps and mines, and personally I am too. I love the burst.
Actually, I prefer totems.
You prefer totems? Oh, okay.
I do. There's pros and cons to all. I mean, something I really like with self-cast, which I don't really like Arc self-cast, but I mean, obviously the whole, like, being able to, like, instantly leech back is really, really nice. I think Mines is probably the strongest right now, and also the one I like the least. But yeah, I think Totems is just really, really fun. Like, especially with all the placement speed you can get now, I actually really, really want to play it as a starter. But I think if I was playing SSF, I 100% would. I don't think it's particularly great in a group because there's not that much I can get support from other players, which is obviously something I have to consider. But yeah, it's so fun with all the placement speed, just running around dropping, and early on you have, like, such an efficient skill tree with the Hierophant where you can, like, grab loads of minion nodes and stuff if you want to for early leveling, and that also for things like SSF makes you not have to bother with, for example, a helmet enchant, and yeah, it's just great. I love totems.
I certainly don't mind the totem playstyle these days that much either. Used to be kind of like a very passive, slow feeling playstyle. Super conservative and safe was the idea behind totems, but these days they work not too differently to self-cast, but with, like, some upsides, I feel, in some ways. Self-cast might need some love in some ways, but you just kind of just throw it down and the totem will kill the packs for you as you move around. And looks kind of nice. For this build specifically, Soul Mantle does seem to be the way to go. And Rise recommends not using, like, the Kikazaru curse stacking stuff, self-flagellations. Feels like it's not worth it at all. So basically you just have Curse Immune Flask, or 2, and just maintain those uptime to remove the curses from Soul Mantle. Soul Mantle gives you extra totem and essentially a pseudo 7 link for your totems once you get it 6 linked. And it does curse you when your totems die, but you can have, as you can see above Rise's head here, curse immune up all the time, so it's not a problem at all.
There's also another good choice in Lore Weave. I'm personally not a big fan of Soul Mantle. Both are big choices, but for clearing maps and stuff, like the extra totem isn't really gonna like have much use. Your first 2 normally like clear everything. So I don't know. Lore Weave is just so insane, and it got buffed this league as well by the new flask system.
Yeah. Let's not lie though. Is like Lore Weave is never really a bad choice.
Yeah, exactly. It's just always solid.
Always a solid choice. So yeah, certainly an alternative if you don't like paying attention to your flask uptime, I guess. If you don't want to have to think about it at all, if you want to completely just like not even just play while watching Netflix on the other monitor, let's just say, and then Lore Weave is a solid choice for that, but also good tankiness too. Just a bit less damage overall. Any other thoughts for this before we move on?
No, I think that pretty much sums up totems.
I think it does. Thank you for guest appearing on Exiled, Rise QT.
Should I continue on, instead of doing Warchief, should I do the Mine and Trap, or just continue on with Arc?
Yeah, let's go. Arc Saboteur. Tell me about it.
This is like a crazy powerhouse, especially for like leveling stuff. For example, on Hardcore, you can ascend a Saboteur with the Blind node early on, which gives you a large damage boost. And nothing really hits you anymore in the way of like the leveling, because there's not that many spells early on, except for like there's a few scary things that have killed some streamers like Rise, like Piety can be pretty scary with their spells. But generally, a lot of the attacks while you're leveling that are going to take you down will be attacks, and the Blind is just insane for that. And the second ascendancy as well that you can take on Hardcore is Regen. Like on Softcore, I would probably level with the like detonate thing for traps, but yeah, it's just like crazy survival stuff. Something that's really nice, it's very easy to make this build shatter. You're pretty much always going to be crit on this. Like for example, on totems, there's big reasons to not be crit, especially early or on SSF. Like both non-crit and crit totems are very good, and then things like you can get killed by Detonate Dead very easy on non-crit, and you can get killed by like porcupines and stuff, and when we did see a bit of that in the previous races. Whereas generally traps and mines are always going to be crit. And yeah, like shattering is just so huge. You can do it either through Call of the Brotherhood, you can do it through added cold, or even getting like flat added cold on Stygian Jewels. Sorry, like they're called Stygian Jewels, aren't they? Yeah.
Yep.
Abyss Jewels. And weapons and stuff. Like you generally shattering things isn't too hard unless you're doing like tier 16s. It's so strong. I think Mines is probably the strongest version. I also don't think it's going to be the most popular because a lot of players are going to be a bit more lazy. So the difference between a mine and a trap is that on a mine you put them down and then you click D, for example, to detonate. Which can be a bit clunky. A lot of people don't like that playstyle. Something that's nice about mines is that it'll auto-target for you, so you don't really need to bother about where is the enemy and throwing it on them. A lot of people also don't like the playstyle. They have changed it slightly lately to where it is basically instant now, and I'd say it's the strongest one. That's why we see so much of it like in the level 90 race and stuff like that. I prefer traps. Traps you basically just throw on the enemy, and I played that a lot in Incursion, where you use things like I think it's called Slay Driver's Hand or something, and this lets generic cast speed affect your trap throwing speed, and that was like so fun. I did like a crazy amount of cast speed, basically took all the cast speed that I could, and it was so fast. It was really nice to play, and it also makes traps cost life instead, so basically like blood magic without taking the node. And yeah, like all versions of Arc right now are very strong, and I think there's a nice balance of the mines being like slightly clunkier, harder to play, but more powerful. And I think that's a nice balance to have between the three.
I think the tree's not quite working with the ascendancies for me as well, but I can echo The trap
Oh,
stuff
yeah.
is super fun to play. I think traps are a bit more fun overall, but to speak to the clunkiness of mines, I really don't think mines are that clunky at all these days. Like they feel really smooth to play, and it's almost like you have to throw the trap specifically at the enemies, and like you said, the mines auto target. The clunkiness is offset by the fact that they auto target. So although you're like
Yeah.
doing an extra action by placing them and pressing D, that's kind of offset by the not having to aim at all. You really just run, click, bam, and just everything blows up. So I think both feel really good, and like damage is insane. On the most like fun thing about this, and I've been a changed man ever since I played like some of my first trap builds, and
Yeah.
that's just because burst, like boss burst, the ability to
Yeah.
pre-stack bosses is one of the most glorious things in Path of Exile, and
It's so good.
just stacking down so many traps ready for the boss to appear, or placing all your mines and waiting for the boss to appear and then pressing D and just insta-killing them is one of the most satisfying things. And for like leveling through the leveling
Yeah.
process with just like basic gear and being able to do that for every boss is just, it'll just make you crack up and grin while you're doing it. It's
It's
so
just
good.
the ascendancy is just so strong. It's so nice. Like the regen, the immunities to is it immune to ignite and shock. That saves up some potion slots and such a nice ascendancy. I think it's so well made.
Yeah, Saboteur is actually quite nutty. It feels really nice to play. Like you said, the blind stuff is really, really good. And just having those immunities and like pretty hefty regen coming in at the same time as well. Super
Yeah,
nice.
like 20%, I think, and that's very substantial. That is
Yeah.
a large amount of regen. And I was playing Arc solo self-found and just playing around with it. And with very bad gear at level 93, I was doing Uber Elder on hardcore. I did die, but I did all the Guardians, all the Shaper Guardians as well, like with no sweat. And I got a little bit unlucky where it was like the Elder attacked like 3 times in one instant. Because I only had 5,000 life and 1,200 mana, and I was out of mana when I died. So I did get one shot, but being able to even like do all that with like 5,000 life, it's such a cool ascendancy.
I really love the combination of Mind Over Matter and acrobatics that you
Yeah.
can, that just like these builds lend themselves so well to. Like the combination of blind, so you're evading everything, and then dodge, so you're dodging everything else. And then Mind Over Matter works really well. So it's like when you've got that big life pool from having life plus a big mana pool, once you gear it out a little bit, you can take that hit when it does come through, and then you just have so much time for those to be refilled with flasks. Like you have the most time to use flasks out of any build. So if your reaction speed is terrible, then this is the build for you, which is nice. I love the layering there; it just feels so good.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts? Like really, you can't go wrong between traps, mines, and
I
totems
would
for Arc.
I would recommend more people try out mines now because it has been reworked where it's like
Same.
instant on the detonate now, and I think a lot of people are put off by like their experiences in the past with mines.
Yeah,
I'd say it's the
different
strongest
game.
version now, and it's worth trying.
Yeah, yeah. So some people just won't like it. Like it's not a playstyle everyone's gonna like. Just like summoners aren't a playstyle everyone likes, but definitely it's a completely different game for mines now compared to how it was a couple of years ago. So worth trying for sure. I think the final one for us then is some War Chief action from you, Mr. Ziz.
Yeah, so War Chief has always been really, really strong. We have the Facebreaker stuff, and like you do have two-handers as well, one-hander and shield, or dual wield doesn't really work that well anyway. I mean, a Facebreaker is my favorite. We have some totem upgrades now, like we're gonna get +1 totem shields.
Bringer
This
of
doesn't
Rain got
really
buffed.
Yeah, exactly. Bringer of Rain is one of my favorite items. It's back to Legacy now, almost. The Legacy one is 260 life, right? I think it's still like slightly worse than the original. Or maybe it is just fully back to Legacy now. I just have a hard time
I
remembering
feel like it
things.
was the same as it used to be, but I honestly can't remember. That was a while ago.
Yeah. So either way, Bringer of Rain is a really, really cool item. For those of you who don't know what it does, it adds gem slots to your helmet. It's melee physical, faster attacks, and blind, I believe. So it's a 6-link, basically a 7-link. Blind being a really, really strong. Oh yeah, it's missing the block. That's it.
Yeah, block's not as good as it was.
Really, really strong. It's also one of the single most annoying items for a streamer to wear because you get comments like, "Hey, streamer, did you know that you're missing a chest piece?" Or if you're wearing one to level gems, "Hey, streamer, did you know your chest is disabled?" And it's so frustrating. It's like almost as bad as the minion nodes. I'd say the minion nodes are actually worse. The only yeah. If you have like a Bringer of Rain, the minion nodes, and a Thief's Torment, you probably like go absolutely insane by the end of the day as a streamer. Because and you do some string transfers on top of that, you just like you're gonna be shaking.
Literally shaking.
Yeah. But yeah,
go ahead.
It's a really, really strong build, especially with Facebreakers, because Facebreaker is generally so cheap, and this gives you the opportunity to volley your Facebreakers for example, Vul, or Ally Weakness isn't too bad either. You will have like Hatred and stuff quite a lot of the time. You have Herald of Purity now that's been added to the game, and ever since Steel Rings came in, like it's just generally been a very, very strong thing. They're not everybody likes Warchief totems because they have a very short attack range. You can't just drop them and run like a screen away. They will stop attacking, which is probably my least favorite thing about it. But it's very, very strong, very cheap, and I really like playing it. As Scion as well. Scion got changed, so you don't necessarily need a Bringer Rain anymore. Before, it would only give you an extra totem in your helmet slot. I believe now it gives you just an extra totem for being Scion. So with the Hierophant Ascendancy, and it's great. It's a really strong Ascendancy, so you get 3 totems now with the Ancestral Bond, and then you get a 4th one on a shield. 2 Kohama is something I would never recommend ever again to anyone, or just never again, because it forces you to be Blood Magic, something you don't want. Because Herald of Purity, Hatred, Herald of Ash, stuff like that, they're so nice.
Yeah, for you guys who don't know, you can one of the Veiled mods, I think it was, that was revealed is +1 totem, which means you'll just be able to craft that on shields now. So you can just get a shield and craft that on it. Easy plus totem.
Even ever wanted.
Goodbye to Gama. So this is a pretty, to do the exactly what you're showing off, the Facebreaker style stuff. Like some of the stuff is a bit expensive, but most of the basics aren't that expensive. Like you can get cheap pair of Facebreakers and stuff early on and just start doing this and just use whatever like random fizz damage you can get, and you'll do fine damage. But do you have any other suggestions for like leveling early on before people get some of the gear?
So I normally recommend, especially for new, actually just always now, just level with a 2-hander. Maybe pick up some like generic 2-handed nodes. You should need less than, I think, how many respec points do we get now for finishing the storyline? I think it's like 12, 14, 16, something like that. But either way, usually you use less than 10 respec points. You can pick up the minion nodes as well, which is generic damage. So even when you swap to Facebreaker, you'll have, is it 20? Sweet. When you swap to Facebreaker from a 2-hander, like the minion nodes will work on either way. So it's so nice. I love it. It's so like the minion nodes are just so amazing.
I'll point out that completely with Ziz on this one, there are like 8 to 10 2-hander uniques that usually cost 1 to 2 chaos, if that, in a new league, that are very solid for Warchief totems. Like Kondo's Pride, for example, is just
if you are playing this build, when you're around level 40 to 50 somewhere, I would start popping Prophecies and hope to get the upgraded, what's that axe called again? Cauterizer? I think it's Cauterizer, which is bonkers. It is insane. It is like an unstoppable force. It will take you can easily kill things like Ziri with a Cauterizer. It is insane. It upgrades Limb Split. Limb Split is like a level 12 weapon, and once it's level 40, it is bonkers. I love Prophecy.
2-hand is completely viable, like cheap, easy alternative to doing the Facebreakers. I agree, Facebreakers is probably be more fun longer term, but that's something you can easily transition into. Like as I said, it'll take no respec points pretty much whatsoever. Any other thoughts?
There's a couple of other versions as well. Like you can do, for example, Chieftain. I think the only benefit that gives you is Leech. I think you can actually get Leech to Scion. I can't remember now. But there are some like other versions of Archief. I probably prefer the Scion one now.
All right.
Yeah. It's nice.
I think that covers us for the solid, dependable league starters. Those are all going to be very fine choices and well proven across multiple leagues right now. They've nearly all of them have gotten stronger in some way as well, if not remained as strong as they once were, which is pretty nutty.
Yeah,
it's pretty nutty. I think that covers it for the classic builds. So then, Ziz, let's
Should
talk
we look at ailments?
ailments. I saw someone saying in chat. Was the post revealed? Was it? Did Bex do some reveals?
Yeah,
Let's do that
Amy
first,
posted
then.
in our document. Let's look at those. Let's open them
Yes. Yep. Let me open it up.
up.
Why can't I open this link? Let me open the link.
Do you want me to Skype you it?
I got it.
All right, I'll start us up. There are 3 new ailments that will appear only on a select few endgame unique items in Path of Exile Betrayal. Brittle. Hits have up to 20% crit strike chance against brittle enemies, based on cold damage of hit, which infected Brittle for 2 seconds. That's huge. That sounds so cool.
Up to plus 20 critical strike chance. So that's like just flat 20 crit.
Yeah.
Okay.
I wonder if that will make us go above 95, like if we can do 100, but I probably still kept at 95, I guess.
Based on the cold damage of the hit, so kind of like a scaling thing. Okay.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting.
Wowza. Okay.
Next up is Scorched. Scorched enemies have their elemental resistances lowered by up to 20% based on the fire damage of the hit for 2 seconds.
God damn, you can get some resistance stripping on fire nowadays.
Yeah, you can like blow all the resist away. That's crazy.
Wow, man. You got like this covered in ash, scorching ray.
Yeah.
There's a few other helmet effect. The helmet shaper mod, I think it is, or elder mod.
And fossils.
Yeah, fossils. Oh yeah, that's the fossil one that I was thinking of.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Combustion.
Yes.
So many things. That's really cool.
Wow. Minus 200% fire resist, boss.
Yeah.
Crazy.
And EE.
Okay.
EE, how did you forget EE? It's your ring.
Oh my god, Ziz, you're right. Elemental Equilibrium / Malachite's Artifice, the superior way to elemental equilibriate.
Oh yeah, no, like EE is so sad on the tree now. Your ring is gonna be like, I think your ring might even be above an X this league.
Yeah,
I'm
not going to get
be
my hopes
excited
up
for
for
finding
that.
your ring.
Well, I mean, that was never my original vision for the goal, for it to be an expensive unique. I wanted it to be a common unique people would use and just try out while leveling, and then a couple people would use it endgame. So if it's expensive, that's not the original intention, but we'll see. Hopefully
Would you be happy if that happened?
No, I wanted to be a couple C. I wanted to be a couple C, but widely used.
I'm gonna buy them all up on hardcore and resell them just to piss you off.
God damn it. I want them to be a beyond Lawweave price. That's what I want to say. If they're higher than Lawweave price, I'll be happy.
Nice.
There we go. The final one is Sapped. Sapped enemies deal up to 20% less damage based on the amount of lightning damage in the hit for 2 seconds. I figured from the name that would be something that made the enemy weaker in some way. I mean, these all do that technically, but I meant like offensively. Dude, these are all really powerful. The latitudes.
Do minimum anything on all these?
I imagine it's like there's a threshold where it just can't exist. So if you don't meet that threshold, nothing will happen.
Yeah.
But if you deal enough, you'll start getting some of it. Dude, that's like that's pretty nutty. The latitude, Scorched, and Sapped are the most widely useful. Obviously, elemental resistances are playing. Well, like Sapped is gonna be good for anything.
Sapped is huge for me because Impulsa.
Yeah, I mean, if you can just get that. I wonder what we saw Scorched on a helmet. There was a helmet that the Path of Exile account tweeted out a little while back that had Scorched on it, and looked like.
I'm hoping for booster gloves.
Okay. Yeah, it's gonna be Sapped is gonna be a chest slot, Ziz, just for you, so you can't use impulses with it.
No.
Pretty nutty. I don't know. I don't really have any other thoughts on that. Those seem
there's not
really
much
strong.
else to say about it until we see what endgame uniques they're on.
Yeah,
Wonder if they're
that's the thing.
just going to be on endgame uniques. Only on a select few endgame uniques. It's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, for now, I guess.
Yeah, maybe they'll like, test it out on veiled mods eventually.
Some league, they'll add new crafting system, and you'll be able to craft these. That's the way everything is eventually gone. Yeah. I think like the power of these is effectively balanced around the uniques they're on. In the end, like if the unique they're on is really weak, then it doesn't then this is like the upside of a weak unique potentially. The helmet looked okay though. I don't think it was like bad or anything. It was just like, oh, it seems like fine. So Scorched as an upside to a fine item makes for a very good item potentially. Looks nice. Cool.
Yeah.
Thanks, GGG, for the midstream teaser. Love it.
And Amy, thanks for linking us it.
Yes, Amy, thank you. And chat for spamming about it earlier. New league strategies is we have a
So
big one.
excited. So excited.
Dude, it's like 4 leagues rolled into one and then a bit of extra sprinkled on top with the Scarabs. Juicy. What are your first thoughts overall, I guess?
Well, you made a really good point. For those of you who don't know, Delve, Incursion, and Bestiary are all going core. I don't know, have you made anything like this? But I made a catch-up video for those who missed the leagues on YouTube, explaining the mechanics and what's going core, stuff like that, out of what we know so far.
Does that cover the changes, like how mostly Bestiary, for example?
I mean, it's not up to date with the new crafts and stuff, but it just talks a little bit about how it just catches people up on the league.
Yeah.
The league looks so cool, and like I said earlier, this is like I don't know anything about this league. It's zero spoilers, so it's gonna be like so exciting to see everything, and it just looks great. It's so cool. I hope we get to kill Richie.
I think that'll be happening. Based on what we've seen, that seems likely. I would love it if like Grist or someone ended up becoming a syndicate member. That'd be great. Even though I know we killed him as a possessed god. Yeah, I mean, secret Krillson action. Chris did say something about it on the podcast.
Totally gonna be an Easter egg.
Yeah, it's got to be, right? It's almost tradition at this point. So Incursion and Delve, if you played those, or if not, watch Ziz's catch-up video, are effectively the same as they were from what we know, unless there was some minor challenges or changes or rebalances. Effectively the same. So anything that was good in them in the past is going to be good now. So that means like double corrupting is back from the temple, both to our like joy and lament, because it was the consumer of many a great item. My first law weave died to double corruption.
My surface.
Oh, dude. Brutal. Brutal.
Something worth mentioning with the Incursion and Delve, and I think Bestiary, is that it's not in every zone now. I think it starts in Act 2, 5, and 7 or something. But in every zone that it does exist, there will be 3. So, for example, 3 incursions in an incursion zone.
Yes, so I can tell you specifically that you'll start encountering Bestiary in Act 2. It's a jungle zone. Einhar appears, and you can start hunting beasts. Makes sense. These all kind of make sense. The mines in Act 4, I think it is where you'll start be able to delve. And then Act 7, I think it is, where there's like the Vile Ruins area. You'll meet Alva Valiant and start doing incursions. So they'll sprinkle those in as you go. It means if you're like we're hoping to pick up any like low-level leveling incursion stuff, then that won't really kick in. That'll be kind of like more of an early end game thing for you. We do know that smallish change to Delve is that the darkness is a little bit more dangerous for some of those like specific like low HP darkness farming builds. But also the resonators and fossils are now more located behind the breakable walls. So if you're looking around in the darkness for stuff, check mostly behind the walls. There won't be as much stuff just sprinkled about in the darkness, which I think makes a lot of sense given just exactly how lucrative just running around in the dark was. It was kind of nutty. But it's still going to be nutty, I'm sure. And Delve crafting, fossil crafting, was absolutely insane. So if you weren't taking advantage of that in Delve, you're mad. But definitely take advantage of that in this league, because the crafts you can do with them are insane, both like at all levels of gameplay, which is like I think one of my favorite things about it. It was Delve crafting was insane for just making some decent gear to use, like while leveling or at early end game for solo self-found, etc. And then also making like good items, and then also making insane items. You could do.
Would you go as far as say they are juicy?
I would say that they are juicy and moist. Ziz.
Nice. Nice.
Nice. Wait, Ziz, can you hear this? Can you hear this?
Yes, I can.
Ah, perfect then. I would say they're
juicy and moist.
Ziz is gone. Ziz is gone.
No, come back, Ziz. I'm sorry.
I'm out.
He's out. He's done. It's too much. We got Bestiary is changed the most from like a gameplay point of view. Bestiary will be much easier now and much less tedious.
No nets.
Yeah, you don't have to manage nets. You just run to the beast, kill them, and Einhauer automatically captures them. Also, the crafting is a bit different now because effectively you'll get a full set of beasts every time you run it, and the recipes are just based around the unique. It doesn't matter about the rares because you're not like having to go and hunt down specific rares now. They're just kind of being given to you. So they made it so that it's just the end decider monster, which is usually the unique one, or the red skull, I should say, not the unique one. Those are the ones that define the crafting recipe. I think from like a bestiary standpoint, there won't be so much you can do with that to like specifically try and do things. If to like further explain what the hell I'm talking about, because that makes no sense. You'll do a bestiary mission, and then you can just go to your
Menagerie.
What do they call it? Menagerie, that one, and just do the recipe that you got. It'll just be kind of like stuff being given to you based on what happened to spawn. Like, I don't think there'll be too much you can make decisions about there. It'll mostly be if like you get like one of the rarer ones. Oh, which item do I want to use this on? If it's like, for example, make a duplicate or something like that. Like the splitting and all that. But you're not going to be able to like specifically target farm bestiary, I don't think. Whereas like compared to delve, like you can target farm that just as much as you were before. You know, like a different rate based on it being master based now rather than something you can do in every single zone. So like you can, if you want to run in the darkness and get specific things in specific zones, you know, go towards specific nodes, you'll still be able to do all of those same strategies, but not quite the case for bestiary, and still the case for incursion though. Like you'll still be able to build your temples the exact same way as you did before. Do you have any other thoughts on the old leagues coming back?
I'm mostly hoping that they'll have done a little bit more changes to the Incursion temple. Like, I thought the Incursions were slightly too nice. Like, they're great, don't get me wrong. And I just, you know, it's obviously a little bit scary if you give something too rewarding, if it, like, feels way more rewarding than the rest of the game. The Incursions felt great. However, a lot of parts of the temple itself I felt could be more dynamic. I don't feel like there was much of a reason to kill the architects. And I didn't feel like a lot of the rooms felt punishing rather than rewarding. Whereas, yeah, like there were a few like tweaks that could be done. I was hoping, for example, killing the architects would like increase the chance of loot from the vacuum cleaner at the end, or make the vacuum cleaner harder, stuff like that. Like, you know, some like
as well.
Yeah, stuff like that. Or, you know, that making the vacuum cleaner more scary would increase the chances of loot. Whereas they confirmed that, no, what you do doesn't change anything. And I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah, I was pretty disappointed by that discovery as well, because I really thought like you were getting fire items from him if you were doing the fire room and stuff like that.
Exactly.
But not the case.
So
I think like now that it's a master content and permanent to the game effectively, even if not in this league, that's something that like I think they'll make continual improvements to this stuff over time. So hopefully that is something that gets changed in the future to make it a little more engaging. Because, yeah, I think that was Chris was talking specifically how Incursion didn't have that much longevity. And I think like those things were part of the reason for that. But they can add rooms and they can add those sorts of mechanics now over time, and I hope they do. Certainly hope they do. We do need to keep asking for it though. Amy is right in chat. Good comment.
What's the vacuum cleaner? Somebody asked. The vacuum cleaner is like the final boss in the Vault Temples, basically a Roomba. It is a circular disc that shoots spells at you. It looks like a Roomba. I'm convinced that they were like trying to think like, oh, should we make it some sort of Val King or some Val Ziri, like, and then maybe like a Roomba at the office like went into the meeting room and they're all looking at it, and everyone's like, that's the boss.
I mean, I feel like they were like, we have to make something like the Vile boss in Act 2, which is also a vacuum cleaner, a standing upright vacuum cleaner. And they're like, let's make a different style of vacuum cleaner for this one. So good. Be right back.
All right.
Oh, it's getting hot here in Oz. Oh. Ooh, blurry Ziggy.
How warm is it there?
Too warm, dude. Too warm. Plus, I got my room closed up, and I got 2 computers and 2 studio lights, and oh man, they produce some bloody heat.
I feel ya.
Sweet, sweet wind.
Um,
Was there any
about
other?
the new league. Well, about the new league, we can talk about Scarabs.
Do tell. What are your thoughts?
I think again, like Scarabs, they look like League Stones. Instead of like activating them in a League Stone screen, you put them in with the map device. Sadly, they don't spawn a boss. I feel like this makes me sad. I think this would be hopefully something they'll do in the future. I'd love like the whole like sacrifice bosses.
We haven't
the
seen all
Shaper
of them
boss.
yet, have we?
Yeah, but they've confirmed that you can't put 4 of them in.
Oh, I see. That they don't combine it into something.
I hope that they will do something like that in the future. I think that's such a like cool feature with Path of Exile, how we like get 4 fragments and open a boss room. Something I would like to see with 2 and 3 as well, like maybe like different combos. But anyway, Scarabs, for those of you who don't know, are basically fragments you put in with the map device, and we've seen some of them so far. Sadly, there's no beyond one, and we already know that, sadly. But we do have some things like, for example, 200% more divination card drop rates in the map you're putting it in with. So say you put it in with a burial chamber, you have a higher chance to get doctor cards. Higher chance for uniques. I think there's an ambush one, probably gives you strong boxes. And there are 3 different tiers of this one, so similar to Sextants in that way.
Yeah, to change what we said before, I feel like these are a hybrid between League Stones for Legacy League and Sextants, because they kind of like are an extra layer of map customization. And they are bringing back a lot of the League mechanics, but yes, no beyond. Do you like have any specific thoughts on like using these? Like you had a good point about specifically thinking which maps you use with which ones, like for example divination cards, using them on maps that make sense, so hoarding those for the right map base.
I think they'll be used a lot for like div card farming and map sustain, so it'll be similar to Sextants where a lot of players won't really use them that much on like any maps below tier 11. I think that's when it's going to start making the most sense. They do sound fairly rare as well compared to Sextants.
I think like some of them will be ones that you will just use whenever. Like for example, the one that increases unique drop rate. There's not that many level gated uniques when you're in maps now these days. So just throwing that in any map that has.
That's true. There's no nemesis now, is there?
I don't remember if there was any nemesis action.
So, because the unique one would have been quite okay for giving you a higher chance of farming a headhunter, in that would have saved those up for that.
I mean, it could be coupled with, I think Parandus is an option in this league, so
Nope, because Parandus doesn't drop off the monsters, they only come from the chests.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. Never mind then.
But some ambush uniques maybe. I don't know. I don't know what the best like use for that is. Maybe it will just be generic maps like you said.
Yeah, just high quantity maybe. Might be fine.
Yeah. But yeah, like I think Scarabs sound pretty interesting, pretty cool, and something they could do more with in the future.
Yeah, it could be. I want it to be something that people just use liberally and have more fun with their maps overall, but it could be worth any interesting ones hoarding a little bit till some of the strats, until you can figure out some strats about which specific ways to use them, because there will be some combos and things that.
Oh yeah, for sure.
There's just so many layers to map customization now.
Yeah, it's also something that is like sort of hard to talk about before we see them. And these Scarabs, they drop from the Syndicate safe houses, from what we understand from the bosses, or is it from the chests or bosses? I'm not 100% sure. But Chris Wilson was saying on the Drop Frame podcast that apparently the rewards from Syndicate safe houses and Betrayal is insane. So that's gonna be really exciting.
Go ahead.
I'm guessing there's going to be some maybe like blue or rare mods that are insane, that are specific, and maybe like some of the uniques and stuff that are insane. Because I don't know, he said there's going to be like crazy reactions from streamers and stuff. So I'm really excited for this.
Yeah,
Undisputed.
Me too. Like I think the Veiled mod stuff is going to be super juicy. Definitely worth considering the fact that even if you're not really engaging in the betrayal stuff too much, just killing them and taking their veiled mods and any opportunities you have for extra ones. Every time you unveil a mod and then select one of the 3 that are listed, you will learn that recipe or gain progress towards a higher tier of that recipe, so you can level them up. And I think there's going to be some really nutty ones. Some of the ones we've already seen are super powerful. And there'll be a lot of gap fillers as well, I think, in terms of crafting stuff. It's also, from what we've seen as well, it's so much easier now to just change crafting recipes on the fly. So it's one scour. You don't need a leveled master anymore. You can just remove mods at any point. So if you craft a mod, you can just change it. And like you can just override previous mods without removing them just by spending an extra scour on the recipe. It does that automatically.
It's so beautiful.
Good. Oh, juicy. So
juicy.
Juicy and moist. I think the veiled mod stuff, it's on the screen, is going to be super nice for that overhauled crafting. So definitely prioritize just picking those up, unveiling them, and like throwing away if the item's no good, but just unveil them because you want those progress towards those recipes, I think. I think that's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'm like, I wish data mining didn't exist. I love that feeling of discovery and stuff like that. Yeah. And like, I mean, a lot of people probably say, "Oh, just don't look at it," but especially as like a streamer or somebody trying to compete, you kind of have to.
Nice idea.
Exactly.
Don't get spoiled, streamer.
Yeah, exactly. So I wish data mining didn't exist at all. Like things like in like Diablo 1, Diablo 2, and like early Path of Exile when there was no data mining. It's such a nice feeling of discovery, and like in some like patches in the past, they've just said like, "Oh, we added something," and we're like, "What did you add?" Like, I love that feeling of discovery. It's so fun. I wish like we had more of that. That's why I'm always going to miss like the Diablo 2 unique system, where you can't see the art until you've identified the item. So, for example, something that has multiple uniques per that item. Like there's that like, you know, there's a clip of Mr. Llama and he finds like a unique item and it's either like the rarest item in the game or a fairly common one, and he identifies it's the rarest one and he just goes ballistic. He's like, "Oh my god, we did it!" So it's I love stuff like that.
And the game debates you so often into picking up bad uniques that way as well. Yeah, I like it. The Syndicate stuff specifically, so the Syndicate members themselves will drop veiled mod items, and I think there'll be like some ways to get extra ones as well, so keep an eye out for those. The bargains, I think, or let's just say the way you interact with the Syndicate stuff. So people are like still maybe a little confused on how it all works, and I'm not going to try and explain like all the moving pieces because like frankly I don't know yet, and it's going to take a lot of just kind of playing through and seeing how things pan out, seeing how things work. But the Syndicate board, I already know from what, like compared to what you guys can see on screen right now, the Syndicate board will have the ability to gain a lot more information as you do stuff. So that's my biggest advice is pay attention to that information without me spoiling anything. Pay attention to the information that gets added to your Syndicate board as you do interrogations, as you do like your various encounters and things like that, because there will be some stuff on there that is super useful to you. Figuring out how you can get the best rewards, because Chris said like the rewards are really insane, but I think to get the really insane rewards you're going to actually want to pay a little bit of attention to how you manipulate the Syndicate board. So there's a few ways to approach this. Like you can really just take whatever bargains are offered to you in terms of getting some extra loot, etc. Right then and there, and then just like do that as like a surface level thing. Like I have these encounters every so often, I get a bit of like extra XP and loot, and then these guys will give me some stuff occasionally, and I'm good with that. You can take the next level, which is just not paying attention to the Syndicate board at all, just like interrogating, getting as much information as you can towards the safe houses, raiding the safe houses, doing that as quickly as possible, and then raiding the headquarters and getting some pretty decent loot. And then there's the glowy brain strats of mixing and matching basing on what things are going to give you the most advantageous loot, as well as progressing you towards those safe houses and headquarters, whilst manipulating who is in there, the combination of who will be in there, and what specific things they'll be giving you. So
this sounds like a lot of reading to me. I don't like this, man. I don't think I'm...
Pause is yes, there'll be some things that you'll want to read. For people who really want to get like engaged into the deep strategy stuff of this, this will be like I feel like this is going to be the most 4X strategy game, grand strategy game thing that Papa Excel's ever done. So there's going to be some fun there for some people. Maybe not everyone's going to like it, I think, but I'm really looking forward to seeing how we can manipulate that and what specific rewards we can get out of that as well. So,
feels fun. Only I could read.
If only.
I think that's the main things about Betrayal itself. Is there anything else you want to bring up for Betrayal?
Yeah, just like to very like briefly go over the where do you get the loot aspect.
Right.
The syndicate members themselves will give you some loot just in those encounters because it's like 3 levels here. Then the safe houses will give you loot depending on which syndicate members in there and which rewards they are harboring at that specific time. So pay attention to your syndicate board for that and to take advantage of that. And then the headquarters, no idea, but presumably something from that. Probably specific uniques, maybe some extra stuff. No idea what the headquarters offers yet. Complete mystery to myself and everyone. Nice. So that's like the 3 areas that you get loot from in this. So I think it's going to be nutty. I am in love with the concept of this, and I'm looking forward to seeing how the execution pans out. Confusing.
Everyone's got a card game. Exciting. Look at it.
It's not a card game. Eventually, I think we'll get a card game. I can't see how such a Magic the Gathering biased fan base development studio, with all of them being Magic the Gathering players, cannot make a card game at some point.
Exile Stone.
Mobile card game, Exile Stone. Cannot wait. I'll be all over that shit. PoE mobile.
I don't like card games that much. I played it too much. I played too much Magic the Gathering.
Oh my god, I just saw this meme that's been posted in my document. I'm gonna post it in chat for you guys. Don't ban me, please, mods.
Praise it.
The new praise, guys. The new praise. Oh, that's amazing. I'm guessing that was Amy's work.
Yeah, it wasn't me.
What a meme lord. She probably like banned someone in chat for posting that and then gave it to me. Apparently that was beef. Well done, mate. Well done. Tell me, Ziz, how do we make money in a league? I feel like I know your strat. Just be faster and play all of the time.
So ideally, you want to scam as many players as possible. No, I'm just kidding. There's like a lot of good ways to make money early on in the league.
Especially
trying to interact with the new mechanics can be really, really good. If you manage to find anything hidden or anything like, obviously the people who found like running the same like delve over and over again for fossils, they were like stupidly rich. I had a friend who like told me he was making 800 chaos an hour at one point, and he'd bought like multiple mirrors very, very early. So finding out stuff about the new league mechanic can be really, it's risky. I mean, obviously it could be like worth not that much. The other options as well, getting quickly to either bosses or getting quickly to maps and selling maps, like putting a little effort in and like bothering to put your maps up for sale, even if it's like between 1 and 4C each. That can be like a crazy amount of currency. And as for like the delve thing, obviously that always stayed fairly profitable. Even when I started doing it pretty late, I started farming it for 400C an hour. So it'll be interesting to see if there will be anything in Betrayal that will be like as profitable and stay profitable. Yeah, there's like quite a lot of ways. Like a lot of the time, people will not remember like what uniques are worth. So you can like sometimes get some ones that are maybe good for new builds now for cheaper. That's like some of the main tips. Like yeah, getting there fast. It's like really nice.
This is going to be the most like endgame dense league we've ever had. So it's literally just lush with choices. But like the advice of if you are fast, you will make money is regardless of what you do is always true. Like if you're first to end game, yada yada, that's always going to be good. But I feel like for some people, that's just useless advice. Let's be real, right? Some of you guys just either can't play that much or you're just not that fast. That's fine. I think the vast majority of players fall into that category. I'll say for you guys, like, don't feel like you can't make some money though if you're not fast, because if you're not fast, play smart. Like there is a lot of money to be made playing smart instead of fast. And that means when everyone else is just trying to play as fast as possible and rushing and doing the same things they know and the proven strategies, your chance to, especially with something like Syndicate, which is going to have so many potential things to explore, like taking your time and experimenting with how those mechanics work. Like Ziz said, if you discover something that you can then on-sell, whether it be like a rarer crafting recipe or whether it be a specific source of something that's hotly needed. Like, for example, maybe you find, hey, if I do this thing with this Syndicate member, I can get a shitload of Scarabs. And those people are going to be buying those up like crazy, especially those guys who are going fast. Those dumb players who just rush fast because they don't know how to play the game very well. They just run. All they know is how to play a lot. You
Exactly.
can
Just
take advantage of those people. So I think there's a lot of opportunities for playing smart, but also like even beyond that, just trading and stuff like that. And don't be afraid to list everything you find up for 1 to 2 chaos at the start of the league. Everything is. I am so surprised every league, the junk, the leveling junk. You find a pair of like 20% move speed boots that you were wearing for a few levels, and then you find some 25% move speed boots. Just stick them in a tab. Someone will buy them. I sell weapons like one-hander weapon with like 70 IPD and some flat fizz and attack speed. That's like level 42, and I'm like, oh, that shit sold for 2 chaos instantly.
And like Empyrean mentioned as well, lab can be really profitable early farming. Like a lot of the high-end stuff you might have to save for a few days because people can't afford it. Like like good enchants. But yeah, very, very nice in lab, and the chests give a lot of currency, and you do get maps as well. As for trading early on, something that I've personally burned myself on is what do you call it? Holding items for too long.
Yeah.
Like like say it's like even like something like cheap-ish, like a 3 or 4C item, like just anything that you think is going to be worth this in 2 days, just sell it. Even if it's 1 or 2C, like that can like help you get that like early sixing and stuff like that. So try not to carry too much stuff or hold on to it for so much.
Unless it's literally like a headhunter or something in that like top 0.1%
Yeah, like
of items.
shafts, combs, stuff like that.
Yeah, unless it's literally one of those items, don't hold on to it for longer, waiting for people to get more money for the value to go up. It is true for some items that the price will go up as people get more money, because on day one, people don't have much money to give you. But everything else, like less money now is better than like holding out for like the gamble of some potentially, maybe I could get a couple more chaos for it if I just wait till tomorrow. You won't. As I said, chuck it. If nothing else, like even if you don't want to like pay attention to what the price of items are, if you just chuck everything into chaos tab, then you'll make a crap load of money that way.
Something worth mentioning. I don't know how common this is on softcore, but if you're on hardcore, and you don't even need to be one of the first people there, but if you in the first 3 days start selling stuff like Kitava carries, that is juicy money. That is insane. Like people pay like 2 to 4C, depending on how many other people are doing it for like Kitava kills. And like, if you have level 75 characters, that is like 0 risk. I know like Carve in some leagues starts doing that when he's like level 60. Very, very nice money.
Agreed. Classic strategies. Apparently there's a new tweet. We can continue with that discussion in a moment. Let me just check what this is here. Here are the character levels requirements for new gems in Path of Exile Betrayal. War Banner.
28.
Hold on a sec, Ziz. Shattering Steel level 12. Lancing Steel level 12, so both of those melee skills available at level 12, which is Merveil's Caverns. Stormbrand also level 12, so you can use like Freeze Pulse or stuff like that until the low levels. Frostbomb, Fire Trap, those sorts of leveling skills. Burn Recall level 16, Dread Banner at 24, Winter Orb 28. I totally expected that. That's not unexpected to me. You sounded a little disappointed that Winter Orb is 28.
It's hoping it was 12.
You're gonna have to play some Blade Vortex before then, mate.
That's fine. I'm fine with this.
Armageddon Brand is 28, so you can, if you're playing a brand build, you can go regular normie spells into Stormbrand into Armageddon Brand, easy peasy. Multi-totem 38 makes sense. It's like effectively like GMP for totems.
Yeah.
And Bone Chill also 38. That one, yeah. That's
makes sense.
Fine.
Pretty cool.
Yeah, makes sense. Good info to know.
Yeah.
I'll link that to you guys. Money.
As for going back to the making money, trading is huge. Like, and something that's very, very important is knowing a little bit more about PoE trade. For those of you who don't know, this is a feature on both like the pathofexile.com/trade and PoE trade, whatever you're most comfortable with. That you can, once you've searched for example, a Comb's Heart, there will be a dialogue. I'm not sure what exactly it says.
I'm doing it
Click
live.
here to perform the search in live mode and be instantly notified when new items matching your criteria is posted. Like generally on a new league, I will have somewhere between 10 minimum to 30, maybe 40 whoops of like uniques that are potentially useful or div cards that I need, 5 links, 6 links. And I made like a league start tip video where I include about stuff like this as well. And early on, you can get 6 things really cheap, especially corrupted ones on day 1. And like you got to remember now that the Vaal side areas can drop corrupted 6 things, and they do very early on. Like this is huge. Like having whoops up for the stuff you need.
I just got a whoop.
Yeah,
6-link
prophecies, div cards, nice. Buy that. Buy it.
2x 6-link shavs, mate. Not bad.
Yeah, so like div cards as well, and prophecies they might need later. Jewels especially, and learning how to set up like a multi-count feature to like search for all the possible things for your build in a jewel search. As an example, like if you're gonna play something popular, on day 1 to 3, you might be able to get like, fairly expensive jewels. Well, that still might be quite a lot of currency early on. Like you're looking at like between 8 to 15 chaos per jewel. Later on, those jewels might be 60 to 120 chaos. So whoops can be pretty big for stuff like that.
I'm showing people how you do that exactly. So you put in all of the stats that you want. So you just go through, look through something like any affix site. There's a whole bunch of them now. But
never use totals.
Yeah, don't use totals. I'm about to take that. I was just going to show you the affix site. You want to use the specific stats. So to find those, just use like whatever affix site you like, as long as it's up to date. And then go into the jewels here. Yeah. And then you got a full list. Just go through, find all the ones you want. This takes like 10 minutes to set up. But if you do this like day 1 before the league starts even, you can start getting these jewels really early, and you'll get them for much cheaper than later on. And honestly, this is also a strategy I've used for like flipping items. You buy them early on, use them for a while, then sell them. Or if you want to be merciless about it, just like buy jewels for every build that you think is going to be popular, then flip that shit in a couple days and make huge amounts of money. So you can do that sort of thing. So you just be like, okay, I want like life, and you go.
Something that I usually do when searching for jewels too is I'll put a life search in a AND loop, and then like all the damage ones in a count, so that I guarantee that it is a life jewel, and then either 1 or 2 damage stats. 3 is generally going to be pretty expensive. And if you're playing like an off-meta build, like for example, let's use what's that staff again? Ice Bear? No, not. I can't remember the name right now. What's the winter staff?
Tan Shiver.
No. Why do I not remember this? Whispering Ice, thank you.
Oh.
Like, for example, Whispering Ice, right? It's always been fairly strong, but generally not that many people play it. Like, if you can think of something that's been strong in the past and hasn't been nerfed and is in the flavor of the month, sometimes you can get, like, quad damage jewels or, like, 3 damage and 1 life. Jewels for, like, 1 to 10 C, because nobody's playing the build, or, like, it's not, like, super high demand for it. So, definitely worth to look out for that. And, for learning how to like price check items as well, there's a streamer called Rise QT that helps out with price checks. He's a little bit old, so he might not see the first time that you asked for a price check.
Yeah, ask a few times, and it'll eventually get him. He needs a bit of time to catch up. Just in terms of like talking about if you need a specific mod on a jewel for this whole jewel searching idea, is what you'll do is you put it in a separate category here. And say life, you like absolutely want a life jewel, you'll put it as an and then you can do a count of all of the possible affixes that you would want on a jewel, like anything that you would be willing to accept, and then put a count. So let's say I'll get life and 2 of these stats. And that's saying you can find whatever jewel for whatever build that you want. Whether you want to flip it or use it for yourself, it is up to you. Very solid advice. Good
And
idea. Covering that here.
resists can also be pretty nice to search for on day
Resist
one.
on jewels, underrated for sure. Actually, very good.
Really. Like 10% all rest, like you can get double
Yeah.
damage, 10 all rest, and life. Like 30 rest, that's huge. And then you might end up be able to get more damage on like your other weapons.
There's a lot of like hybrid ones like this, fire and lightning, fire and cold, and you can get like just dual with like, you know, a damage mod and some of that, or some life and some of that, and those will make a big difference to your overall gearing for sure. Especially now there's going to be a lot of crafted mods that you can potentially put in suffix slots for veiled mods. Some of those could be pretty powerful, so you might be wanting to sacrifice some resistance. Usually the reason why we got resistance is more on gear and not on jewels is because of like the difference in what you could have there, the power levels of what you could have there. So there was like suffixes on most gear is like there's nothing to have there except, you know, maybe some like strength for extra life or dexterity if you need it, etc. So I'm just going to put all my resistances on my gear suffixes. But so you're like, okay, and then I'll get damage and other useful stuff on jewels. But if there's like a mod that's better than a damage mod on a jewel, then put your resistance on your jewels and use the damage mod from the veiled mods. Think about like the potential weighting there. Do you have any other hot tips like that one, Ziz? That's a good one, mate. Good one. What about when it comes to like once you get to end game? What's your recommendations?
I mean, like, think about what div cards you can farm and stuff like that, and think about like shaping your atlas. Read a little bit about like different videos from, for example, like Carve, me, and like other streamers that do have like atlas videos out, and learn a little bit more about what you want. Sometimes there might be like, say for example, you really want a Comb's Heart. Comb's Heart is one of the easiest things in the game to target farm, considering how rare the item actually is to either buy or drop. It is relatively to that rarity extremely easy to self farm. If you, for example, make Volcano the only map you can drop. So take some time, learn a little bit about the Atlas system and how you can make it work for you.
Hey Ziz, do you think the divination card drop locations will be changing since the Atlas maps have been shuffled around? Or do you think they'll still be in the same maps?
Don't think they'll change around as long as the boss hasn't been changed around. They mostly seem to do it based on what boss is there. Like, for example, the Doctor follows whatever map Alira is in.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. So, potentially some, like, of the wiki information on divination card drop locations. So if you're looking, it might be out of date, so if you're looking for something specific, just check around and see whether anyone's confirmed whether that's changed or not.
Yeah.
Some bosses are changing, yeah.
Yeah. It'd be interesting to see which ones. I'm guessing mostly just placeholder bosses are changing.
Yes, and I would not look at any Atlas strategies from before the current Atlas changes as well, because they'll be a bit different.
I would be shocked if Volcano gets moved.
Yeah, I think a lot of the just map tile set based ones will probably still be the same. I think you're right. Otherwise, I just can't imagine. I can't imagine GGG giving themselves that much work when they already had so much to do for this expansion. Like, let's also figure out all of these divination cards.
Short on time for things.
Yeah. I expect this league to be a bit more unfinished than some of the last leagues, just due to the sheer size of everything they were trying to do here. I feel like they tried to do maybe too many things at once, but we'll see. Like, maybe they pull it off just fine and like it's pretty smooth. But like doing a complete Atlas reshuffle, doing like roughly like 3 to 4 archetype pretty big changes and ascendancy changes and skills and skill reworks and like full overhaul of like heaps of uniques. Like, there's just so many things in addition to like bringing in back like changing the masters and adding a new league. It seems like there's 2 extra things there than I would expect from an expansion.
Yeah, they and like Chris said on Dark Frames as well, it was like slightly larger scope than they kind of wanted to do, but we're really spoiled on content. It's great.
Yeah. That's a good comment from chat. There is not necessarily, especially these days, no one best Atlas strategy. In the early days, definitely like following the shaped and sextant blocking and stuff like that was just too good. Like, if you were not doing that, it was really just because you didn't want to, and you were definitely missing out on that. But these days there's a lot of like, they're putting more and more upsides into not doing that, and also putting some limits on that side of things. Like, it depends. It depends a lot on how you play. Like if you're
I guess.
chaining maps back to back really fast, then one strategy is going to suit you better than others. But if you're, hopping around, especially with like now the master missions will be jumping around between different maps. So if you're like only specifically sticking to like one map tile set over and over, it's a good strategy for, your raw currency per hour sort of stuff, potentially. But there's a lot of other things you could be taking advantage of. So don't be afraid to play your Atlas your way.
Yeah, I mean, the most important thing is having fun.
Absolutely. That'll keep you going more than anything.
I can't imagine completing the entire Atlas early on in a league.
Yes, my biggest XP per hour and currency per hour and like getting to Uber Elder and beating Syndicate boss, all of these things rolled into one tip is take some breaks. Try and take a break every hour. Go for a little walk around. Don't get any deep vein thrombosis. You will...
Do some hand stretches.
Yes. If you get like Regal Mortis, which is when your body stiffens when you die, it makes it very hard to earn a lot of currency per hour. So don't... look after yourselves,
drink water.
Guys. Yes, drink water. That's also a good one. Drink water has a double benefit. It's like good hydration, but if you're drinking a lot of water, it's going to force you to get up every hour. So it forces you to take breaks if you don't normally remember. So do it. Look after yourselves, guys. That'll keep you going strong more than anything
Unless
else.
they have a P bucket. You didn't think about the really efficient gamers here.
Right. That's true. Try it. But those people might end up catching the rigor mortis. So you want to watch out for that.
I think the only other thing, we have a question from chat. I can read it out and ask you the question.
Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
Hello, Ziggy. Oh, it's from Jumpin' Buddha. Hello, Ziggy. I noticed during the video for the Armageddon brand recall that when recalled, the brand would slam the ground because of the recall, then go down, and then attach to any remaining mobs and slam again. The shield charge idea with cast when damage taken might work because of that. Slow down the video at 25 to 28.
Yeah, no, that is exactly how it works. It says that in the gem text, but not in like the information below it.
Yeah.
Because that just talks like number stuff. But the actual gem mechanics say that it'll trigger it, so it'll make them do their thing once, even if they're not attached to a monster. So yeah, like there's definitely some potential there. The cooldown is the biggest limiting factor there. I think it's a 3-second cooldown. So if you're trying to trigger it really, really quickly on like something like shield charge, I think that's probably not worth it. Plus, I'm pretty sure it's an instant cast skill, so you can just shield charge and cast it yourself. You don't really need to have it like be a triggered thing. You can just like do it while you're shield charging. Don't forget instant cast skills. Oh, best change in Path of Exile. Oh my god. Even vortex, you can charge. You can while shield charging cast vortex, charge through the pack mid shield charge, drop vortex on them, poop out some cold damage.
Can you imagine if they do that with BV? I wouldn't play anything else.
Oh my god, Blade Vortex without making you stop would just be rip Path of Exile meta until the end of days.
Yeah.
They have to be very careful about what things they make instacast, I think.
I think Vortex will be really good now.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to really trying out the Vortex Cold Snap. As I said, I think it's going to be risky, but the potential upside there, if it does work out nicely, being able to run around with Vol Cold Snap and instacast Vortex, sounds like it could be fun. So I'm going to be playing.
Should we take that one there as the last thing?
Sure, what is the question? I don't see it.
A lot of people are asking about Toxic Rain now that Quill Rain has been nerfed.
Yes.
Toxic Rain is very strong. Still, without Quill Rain, it's going to be slightly more painful to level, especially if you don't invest into damage. But like I've played around with it with just like a white short bow. It still works. You also have, for example, the Tempest or Storm Cloud to use. So definitely still a good skill. And the reason why I'm actually happy with the Quill Rain nerf, and Ziggy, I know this hurts, but it's too common a unique to be nearly best in slot. The fact that you basically needed to either make a +4 bow or like a +3 with 20% attack damage, and that was barely better. Oh no, what's happening to me? No! Move me back up. The fact that was like nearly better than like a really expensive weapon, like that's not great. But I think this opens up for example, making a faded unique of Quill Rain For example, I would want it to be called Quill Pain, but
Ooh.
yeah. So I think that would be good. And then you still have like Quill Rain is still really good. It's still great for early hit or good for early leveling on things when you're maybe twinking a bit. It's great in general, but it's not like completely busted. Or
Yes,
Quill Storm.
as sad as I am about Quill Rain, because it just felt like GGG just like picked up a cute little puppy, gave it a little kiss on the snoot, and then just punted it. I just kicked it. So that's kind of what it felt like. It was so innocent, such an innocent bow. It was too gentle for this
Good
one.
run.
But no, like Toxic Rain, I think will still be fine even with Cool Rain. Like definitely you're losing a pretty big chunk of damage, but I think the skill is strong
40%.
enough to weather that. I think the Storm Cloud is technically better now for it mathematically. But this is Ziggy, so Ziggy math. I haven't have an emote for that, so don't trust me. Do your own math. Do your own math. But worth investigating. I will concede the point that I did think it was a bit lame when I fossil crafted a sick +3 bow with like attack speed and everything. When I was like, was it even? I think it even had something else on it, and I was like, oh, turns out Quill Rain's just way better than this. I was a bit sad about that.
Yeah, I had a similar experience, and like on paper and in practice too, it was slightly more damage, but Quill Rain just felt so much better because of the speed.
But we're just talking Toxic Rain here. The real victim of this is Explosive Arrow. Was hanging on by a tiny little lifeline.
You can still do Explosive Arrow with a +4 bow.
You can still do Shield Throw as well, Ziz.
You're not wrong.
Would you like a mandatory enforced Shield Throw build?
No, I'm okay, thanks. I'll never touch Shield Throw. I looked at it, never happening. Seen people playing it. That does not look fun.
And yes, eventually you can get like you can fossil craft like +4 and +5 bows now. Delve's still in, so you can do that stuff for Toxic Rain. So honestly, Toxic Rain is gonna be pretty fine. I think like the biggest downside is that Toxic Rain felt the best with Cool Rain though. Like playing it with the +3 for a while and then playing it with Cool Rain, I was like, oh my god, I could never go back. So I'll probably never play it again because of that. It just felt it feels so much smoother with that. It's because it has both that attack speed and the projectile speed. It just makes a big the playability improvement of that is really good. So yeah, and there are so many cool new things and other stuff.
There's a lot of new cool stuff to do.
I'm a bit sad about Cool Rain. I think there's other ways they could have nerfed it, but
yeah, I agree, but again, it's like such a common unique, and I really do hope they open up for a faded version. And honestly, like, who wants to play the same build more than once anyway? Like, that's something I never do.
Wait a minute.
I'm lying.
You want to be exiled from the Exiled Podcast, Ziz?
I played Spark like nearly 40 times.
Nearly, Jesus.
Fun build.
I think that's it for us for the podcast. Solid 2.5 hour podcast there. Ziz, any final thoughts or anything, mate?
I don't really do a lot of thinking, to be honest with you.
First no reading, now no thinking.
I have blue hair. What do you expect from me?
Wait, you're telling me you barely do any thinking, and then one of the few thoughts you had was that the Cool Rain nerf was justified?
Yeah. What does that tell you?
You could have put that one thought that you had to something better. I'm just kidding, man. I love you. Thanks for appearing on Exiled again. I do, man. I love doing the podcast with you. Always an absolute pleasure.
Thank you for having me.
I hope you guys enjoyed it as well. Thank you very much for watching. I think you're going to be going live, Ziz, so I'll give you a little host after this, mate.
Yeah. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Zizaran. I have blue hair. I play hardcore. It's just sort of like being vegetarian in PoE. I will be streaming for 500 hours in the next 31 days. Starting tomorrow, I'll be streaming for 500 hours is the plan. So you will be able to tune in pretty much every time. And I also stream really hard over the 23rd, 24th, 25th. For those of you who are alone on Christmas and don't have anywhere else to be, you're welcome to be in my channel. So it's Zizaran on YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, everything. Hope you enjoy what I move.
Yeah. I imagine there's going to be a lot of that once you're several hundred hours deep into your 500-hour marathon.
Move.
Can we get some moves in chat for this? And I will not be streaming 500 hours, but I will be streaming. I'll be streaming a regular, normal person amount, right? Somewhat. Considering it's a new league, I always can't help myself and nearly end up playing way too much. But yes, I will be streaming as well, but nowhere near as much as that. So I look forward to seeing you guys there. And if you ever need some company, Ziz will be there for you. So that is going to be it for now. I am ZiggyD with Ziz, and thank you guys very much for watching. Goodbye now.
And try to die less than I do.
Beautiful.